I was married to Lu Guanma for 10 years as a wealthy socialite. After being reborn, I met the 18-year-old Lu Guanma again. Everyone expected me to chase after him, even Lu Guanma thought so, pretending to have amnesia to avoid me. But to everyone's surprise, I immediately sought out my future best friend instead. My bestie hated studying, so I pulled all-nighters to organize notes for her. When my ride-or-die got hurt in a fight, I carried her sprinting to the hospital. Later, my BFF struck it rich and wired me $50 million outright. Since you've got no family fortune, sis is sharing the wealth. The comment section exploded. OMG, besties really do have your back when men don't. Now that's a true bestie actually spends money on you when she's got it. 1. Standing back on the field, I was still processing everything. Suddenly, glowing bullet comments flooded my vision. Whoa, the female lead got reincarnated, didn't she? After living as a wealthy socialite for 10 years in her past life, no way she's not throwing herself at the male lead now. I'll bet a pack of spicy strips she's totally gonna cozy up to him. Once you've tasted the high life, it's hard to go back to being ordinary. She's bound to become his lapdog. Who wouldn't want to transform from a sparrow into a phoenix overnight? As these comments flashed by, I spotted Lu Guanma standing at the podium in the distance. Addressing the crowd as the representative, the young man had refined features and stood as straight as a pine, holding the microphone with a clear, measured voice that effortlessly captured the attention of most present. But I only glanced at him before looking away. What does my ex-husband from a past life have to do with me now? 2. Yes, I've been reborn. In my past life, I shared a desk with Lu Guanma for 3 years. He was always distant and polite. Until the day I accidentally fell down the stairs. Passing by, he broke his usual demeanor and carried me to the infirmary. From then on, my eyes unconsciously followed him everywhere. I applied to the same university, fought desperately to enter his orbit, and conveniently became his wife when his family pressured him to marry. Everyone said I'd won the lottery marrying into wealth. But only I knew the bitterness behind this so-called luck. The truth was, Lu Guanma never loved me. He only married me after learning his cherished white moonlight had already wed abroad. If it's not the one who got away, then anyone will do. All that affection was just my unrequited love. After enough disappointment piled up, I chose to divorce him, only to get into a car accident on the way to finalize it. When I opened my eyes again, I'd somehow returned to high school. Now that I've been given this second chance, I won't make the same mistakes again. Honestly, compared to Lu Guanma, I'm more invested in my future BFF Chu Shi. She also went to our high school. We once lamented meeting too late, but now fate gives us another chance. My gaze swept across the crowd until I spotted that familiar figure in the neighboring class's line. Amid the crowd, the girl had tied her school blazer around her waist due to the heat, her expression slightly annoyed, with yellow-dyed tips on her black hair. She carried an unmistakable, "don't mess with me" vibe. My eyes grew unexpectedly moist. In my past life when the Lu family ostracized me, she alone stood up for me. Upon hearing my decision to divorce, she even put work aside, bought 2 vacation tickets to help me unwind. Just as my emotions surged, the speech on stage concluded. Lu Guanma walked back. As the boys and girls lines passed close by each other, the young man's gaze barely lingered on me, as if we were mere classmates, but I didn't care. Rushing straight to the next classroom to find Chu Shi the moment our teacher dismissed us. In my haste, I didn't notice someone's foot tripping me until I crashed hard onto the floor. My knees burned with sharp pain, leaving me momentarily unable to stand. Not far away, Lu Guanma's footsteps abruptly halted. The barrage is going wild. The female lead is so scheming. The male lead ignored her earlier, and now she pulls this move. TSK, but the female lead's efforts are doomed to fail. The male lead still has feelings for his white moonlight at this point. I furrowed my brows. What do you mean there isn't one? The boy standing next to Lu Guanma chuckled teasingly. Hey Guanma, your desk mate took quite a spill. Aren't you gonna help her up? The teenager's expression turned frosty. What's that got to do with me? Yet despite his words, he still walked over. Just then, a slender hand suddenly reached out before me. I froze for a second before looking up to see Chu Shi standing there, her face tense. Noticing Lu Guanma approaching, she instinctively tried to withdraw her hand, but the next moment, I'd already grasped it firmly. Using her hand for support, I stood up without glancing at Lu Guanma. Beaming at Chu Shi, I said, "Thanks, come on, let me buy you a drink." Hee. Successfully met up with my childhood bestie. Lu Guanma's outstretched hand froze midair. Comments. 3. Wait, what? The heroine just ditched him for someone else looking all fresh and radiant. Something's off here. Wasn't the female lead supposed to be head over heels for the male lead? She's totally faking it, probably playing hard to get. After all, she's not actually 18 mentally. The comment section was exploding with arguments, but I couldn't be bothered, completely fascinated by my best friend who'd somehow become 10 years younger. When I first met her in a past life, she was already an accomplished professional, decisive, formidable, and razor-sharp in the workplace. In my stereotypical imagination, I'd assumed she must have been that aloof, straight-A student back in her school days. Turns out, reality doesn't quite match my mental image. Beside me, Chushi's expression stiffened slightly, caught off guard by my hand holding hers. She gave a faint struggle before murmuring, "Don't." I pressed my lips together. She didn't know me yet at this point. Of course she'd be wary, but it's okay. I'll take the initiative. I grinned and said, "No can do. My mom always taught me to return kindness with gratitude." Chushi, who was being forcibly repaid, the corner of her mouth twitched, but she didn't argue, letting me drag her toward the convenience store. We walked so fast that we didn't even notice. Behind us, Lu Guanma remained standing there, watching our receding figures with an inscrutable expression. 4. When we reached the convenience store, after scanning the shelves, I instinctively grabbed her usual brand of water. Turning around, I found Chushi staring at me intently with a peculiar look. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I asked casually, not understanding the situation. "No." Meeting my clear gaze, Chushi's eyes wavered slightly. After a long pause, she shook her head and took the water from my hand. Seeing this, I didn't say anything more. Afterwards, we walked back to the classroom together. Her class was next to mine, so I escorted her to her classroom first before turning into mine. Lu Guanma was already seated at his desk. The boy's page-turning hand hesitated slightly when I returned, yet he kept his head down, his profile radiating aloofness. I fell silent, my earlier good mood evaporating instantly. In my past life, after realizing my feelings, I lost count of how often I'd steal glances at him behind my textbook, invent trivial conversations between classes just to hear his voice, or secretly leave bottled water on his desk after P.E. The mere sight of him drinking it filled me with joy. They say unrequited love is a one-sided battlefield, but I have no regrets. Yet after 10 years of marriage, I no longer cared for him. With this thought, I calmly returned to my seat, wondering whether to ask the teacher for a seat change. I'll bring it up after class, having made up my mind. I took out the water I'd just bought and placed it on the table. Noticing this, Lu Guanma's eyes flickered with understanding as he remarked coolly, "For me, why isn't it the usual brand?" His words were cut short by my action. I unscrewed the cap, took a deliberate sip, then turned to ask him, "What did you say?" Lu Guanma's words caught in his throat, his handsome face turning cold. "Never mind." The barrage of comments scrolled wildly before my eyes. OMG, what's the female lead doing? Isn't the male lead practically handing her an olive branch? Seriously, if she wants to marry into wealth, shouldn't she be buttering up the male lead? TSK. Looks like she's planning to follow her past life script, waiting for the male lead's white moonlight to get married so she can swoop in when he's vulnerable. Typical. Now that the male lead's lost face, who knows if she'll even get another chance. I finished reading the barrage of comments with an indifferent expression, curling my lips slightly, as if I care. 5. As soon as morning classes ended, I bolted out of the classroom and made a beeline for the cafeteria. Noticing this, Lu Guanma paused midway through packing his books, his brows instinctively furrowing before he let out a derisive snort, as if recalling something. Completely oblivious, I happily bumped into Chushi at the cafeteria. She was eating alone at a table, with all the surrounding seats completely occupied. The space beside her seat remained conspicuously empty, isolating her from the chatter around. The cafeteria hummed with activity. Some debated the difficulty of that morning's math class, while others critiqued the cafeteria dishes. Someone abruptly brought up Chushi's name in conversation. "Hey, do you guys know Chushi from class 2 senior year? Heard she got into another fight. Bet she's getting suspended this time. Who knows? Just glad she's not in our class. People say she only hangs out with guys. Total pick-me energy. Ugh, how does our school even allow trashy girls like her?" Teachers just turn a blind eye. Their voices dripped with barely concealed contempt. Little did they know, the subject of their gossip was sitting just one table away. The absurdity wasn't lost on me, yet I knew all too well how rumors spread like wildfire among students. Truth be damned, once the gossip starts, it takes on a life of its own. I glanced at Chushi with concern. She remained unfazed, quietly continuing her meal. Seeing this, the tension in my brow eased. "That's my future bestie for you." Rock-solid composure. I silently admired her as I sat across the table with my tray, then offered some comfort. "Don't take what those people said to heart. At my words, the person who'd been eating looked up and met my sparkling eyes. She paused briefly before raising a finger to point at her ear, following her gesture instinctively. I noticed white earbuds tucked in her ears. All right, so you couldn't hear me. I gave her a thumbs up. Brilliant. My movement was too abrupt. I accidentally knocked the plate, sending the crispy chicken leg flying. It landed right in Chushi's dinner plate. After a brief daze, I rolled my eyes and said with mock seriousness, "Look at you, not just irresistible to people, even chicken legs fly into your plate." Hearing this, the girl who'd been keeping a straight face paused mid-bite, stared at the drumstick for a long moment, then calmly took a bite, but I clearly saw the corners of her lips curl upward. Hee, finally in a good mood. 6. After lunch, I naturally walked back to the classroom with Chushi. Senior year is packed with tight schedules and heavy workloads, leaving almost no time for breaks. Chushi barely spoke the whole way, but luckily I'm a chatterbox. I could ramble on endlessly starting from high school days. Once I forgot to turn off the studio mic after playing music, accidentally broadcasting 30 minutes of ASMR eating sounds, the crisp crunch of biting into an apple, crunching on potato chips, munch munch. Just thinking about it now makes me laugh. Hearing this, Chushi couldn't help but ask, "And then what happened?" "Then what?" My face fell instantly. "Getting scolded, obviously." Chushi paused briefly. Just when I expected her to mock me, she uttered a flat response, "No big deal. I get chewed out all the time, you get used to it." I froze for a second. That was the most soul-crushing pep talk ever. LMAO, guess what? Getting scolded so often makes you immune to it. Why does the female lead always hang out with this girl, with those yellow highlights? She's clearly not the studious type. Now I remember. This girl becomes the female lead's bestie later on. Who cares about besties? Shouldn't the female lead focus on winning the male lead's heart instead? Me, ugh. What's the point of chasing an ice cube that'll never melt? But the subtitles did remind me of something, namely, asking the teacher to switch seats. So right before class, I went to the office. The homeroom teacher was preparing lessons when she noticed me approaching. Adjusting her glasses, she asked, "Shen Luaning, what's the matter?" Without hesitation, I stated directly, "I'd like to change desk mates." The moment my words landed, sudden knocking sounds came from the classroom door. Turning around, I saw Lu Guanma standing at the doorway. 7. Our eyes met unexpectedly. Maybe it was just my imagination, but Lu Guanma's calm eyes seemed to flicker with surprise. But in an instant, his usual aloofness returned as he said quietly, "Professor, you wanted to see me?" "Yes." The teacher nodded and handed him the math test papers. "Help distribute these, since you're here anyway. Shen Luaning wants to change desk partners. You two can discuss it." Lu Guanma didn't even glance at me, his voice icy. "Whatever she wants." I stayed silent. Meanwhile, the live chat went wild. "Oh my god, the female lead is really pushing her luck. Does she actually think the male lead will come chasing after her? Wishful thinking. Just wait till she's crying over failing to marry into wealth. The chasing her man into a crematorium drama is coming." I pretended not to see it. If possible, I'd transfer to class 2 in a heartbeat, but obviously that's not realistic, so I settled for the next best thing, swapping seats with another girl in class, books and all. What I didn't expect was, when that girl sat next to Lu Guanma, the usually aloof guy suddenly grew visibly irritated. With a sharp scrape, he shoved their adjacent desks apart, caught off guard. The girl flushed crimson with embarrassment and immediately rushed over to tell me she'd changed her mind about switching seats. I glanced around, only to find everyone deliberately avoiding eye contact. Hopeless, I had no choice but to sit back down, though I followed Lu Guanma's lead and scooted the desk slightly further away. The gap between our desks resembled two parallel lines that would never meet. Just when I thought this arrangement would satisfy Lu Guanma, a gentle bump brought our desks back together again. I turned my head in surprise. Without looking at me, Lu Guanma said flatly, "You pushed the desk so far out. How are people supposed to walk behind it?" I glanced at the aisle wide enough for two people to pass. Couldn't figure out what he was thinking, but it doesn't matter anyway. We'll go our separate ways after graduation. 8. In the following days, I kept visiting class 2 to see Chushi. Over time, we grew closer. Chushi never cared for studying, but to keep me company, she just sprawled across the desk in the study hall and dozed off. By the time I finished my test paper, she was still groggily half asleep. Watching her slacking off like this, I could hardly imagine she'd become that formidable female CEO in the future. The thought made me chuckle under my breath. Hearing my laughter, the half-asleep person squinted at me and mumbled, "What's so funny? Finished your work?" Textbook creases marked her cheek. Her gaze still bleary with sleep, I couldn't help grinning. Hey, what if we go to the same college? We'd see each other every day. Which college are you aiming for? She woke from her doze and asked me. I pondered for a moment. Nanjing University, she nodded. Yeah, you'll be hitting the books while I'm roasting sweet potatoes. I'll set up shop right at the uni gates. Guaranteed we'll see each other every day. My vision went dark. Forget the male lead. The heroine's bestie is actually such a riot. Wait, wasn't she the one who became a badass business tycoon later? Oh right, but the heroine clearly doesn't know her BFF's rags to riches story, still trying to steer her down the study hard detour lol. 9. I genuinely had no idea about Chushi's rise to fortune, but that didn't stop me from wanting her to attend the same university. I pulled out all my notes from freshman to senior year and stayed up late compiling study materials for her. Chushi started off half-hearted, but realized I was dead serious. Staring at my dark circles, she hesitated before saying, "You're really, never mind, I give up on you." She gave up on sleep and started grinding through practice problems with dogged determination. She's not dumb, and her fundamentals are decent. Just can't figure out why she keeps underperforming in exams. Thankfully, there's still over half a year until the college entrance exams, apart from sleeping during class. I was practically glued to her the rest of the time. 3 months flew by in a blink, and watching her grades improve filled me with quiet pride and joy. Lu Guanma seemed inexplicably restless, his gaze lingering on me unconsciously. I couldn't fathom why, but chose to ignore it. Another Friday after school, the sky hung heavy and gloomy, threatening rain. I packed my things and was about to go find Chushi in the next classroom. Suddenly, I heard a muffled groan nearby. Turning around, I saw Lu Guanma, who always sat with perfect posture, slumped over the desk, clutching his stomach with one hand, beads of cold sweat rolling down his temples. I immediately understood what was happening to him. He suffers from chronic gastritis. In our past life, I constantly reminded him to take care of his health, but he never took my words seriously, so I always kept stomach medicine ready for him, and whenever an attack came, I'd be running around like a headless chicken. But didn't his stomach problems only develop after he started skipping meals during work? Why is this happening now? I couldn't figure it out, but seeing his pale lips, I worried he might actually be in trouble. Reluctantly stopping, I asked, "Do you need me to take you to the infirmary?" It wasn't out of kindness. If he really died in the classroom, as the last person to leave, I'd be held responsible. Hearing this, Lu Guanma barely lifted his eyelids and gave a faint, almost condescending hum. Me. Suppressing my irritation, I helped him up and took him to the infirmary. Before heading downstairs, I made sure to text Chushi, asking her to wait for me for about 15 minutes. She replied with an okay. Thrilled by her response, I eagerly scrolled through emojis to send her a heart. Beside me, Lu Guanma had been watching my movements intently. His eyes darkened slightly as he suddenly spoke up. "Shen Luaning, since when did you and Chushi become so close?" The words came out of nowhere. My finger froze mid-swipe across the screen. For a fleeting moment, I thought Lu Guanma might have been reborn too, but then again, no way. If he were truly reborn, he'd have gone abroad to find his white moonlight long ago instead of studying here, probably just making casual conversation. I picked a ridiculous heart-shooting meme, sent it, then pocketed my phone with a dismissive, "There's plenty you don't know." Lu Guanma. 10. By the time they helped him to the infirmary, dark clouds had gathered overhead. A thunderous downpour began without warning. The doctor prescribed medication and advised him to rest at the infirmary before heading home. A damp autumn chill seeped through the window, carried by wind-lashed raindrops. The campus soon emptied out, leaving only the sound of rain between heaven and earth. A quiet stillness settled over the place. Lu Guanma sat in the chair, his dark eyes flickering over my anxious expression before his features softened slightly. "Don't worry so much. I'm feeling better now." Me. "Oh, why would I worry about him? I'm just thinking, with this heavy rain, is Chushi feeling scared alone in the classroom?" But the live comments misunderstood. See, I knew the female lead wouldn't just abandon the male lead. I'm getting the vibe the male lead might not completely dislike her after all. At least he seems more relaxed when she's around. Come to think of it, isn't this when the heroine's best friend gets into that fight with her father's illegitimate son? Whatever, she'll be fine in the end anyway. Let's just focus on the push and pull romance between the main couple. I instantly zeroed in on the key point. Chushi got into a fight with someone. At this realization, I couldn't stay still any longer. Beside me, Lu Guanma's eyes darkened slightly as if wrestling with something. After a long pause, he finally spoke slowly. "Shen Luaning, it's not that I can't let you be my girl. I'm heading out first." Our voices overlapped, Without catching his words, I grabbed an umbrella from my bag and dashed into the rain. Lu Guanma's sentence hung midair as he stared blankly at my retreating figure, his hand frozen where it had been resting against his abdomen. Did she just walk out on him like that? The clinic doctor gave him a sidelong glance. If your stomach isn't actually hurting, you can leave too. What you've got isn't gastritis, it's emotional distress. The implication was clear. He was faking it. With his ruse exposed, Lu Guanma's face cycled through shades of red, green, then ashen gray, until his stomach actually began cramping for real. 11. I had no idea what Lu Guanma was thinking when I rushed to the teaching building. To my surprise, the classroom was completely empty, not a soul in sight. Where's Chu Shi? I scanned the room and finally noticed her desk, neatly arranged without a trace of clutter. Clearly, she left on her own. Could the bullet comments be lying to me? As if sensing my thoughts, another barrage of bullet comments flashed across my vision. Chu Shi went to the convenience store to buy snacks for the female lead, but ran into her half-brother along the way. They got into an argument that turned physical. Given women's natural disadvantage in strength against men, she's probably going to get beaten up. Damn, she actually went to her bestie. I thought she came back to grab an umbrella for the male lead. Seriously dude, I've had enough of you. Stop being so romance-obsessed. Can't the female lead value her friendship without revolving around some guy? Ignoring the heated comments, I headed straight to the convenience store. The rain had let up slightly by now. From a distance, I saw two figures locked in struggle. The taller one suddenly kicked the slender figure, sending them sprawling to the ground. Through the curtain of rain, I couldn't make out any sounds from the scuffle. I only saw the larger figure pause for a few seconds, perhaps muttering something, before swaggering off in the opposite direction. The slender figure staggered to their feet and began weaving unsteadily toward me. My heart skipped a beat as I rushed over, only for my pupils to constrict sharply when I recognized the approaching figure. The girl was drenched from head to toe, her hair and face splattered with muddy water, a large stain on her back, her lips pale as chalk. Chu Shi, are you okay? I immediately steadied her. Caught off guard by my sudden appearance, Chu Shi froze momentarily before lowering her lashes and calmly saying, I'm fine, just took a little tumble. Here, I got you an onigiri. As she spoke, she pulled out a warm rice ball from her pocket, but perhaps from the fall, the rice ball had been squashed, the seaweed-wrapped rice soaked through with water, clearly inedible now. As I stared at it, tears suddenly began streaming down uncontrollably. Seeing this, Chu Shi grew flustered. Hey, what are you crying for? Where are you hurt? Let me see. Without another word, I pulled her into the corner and carefully lifted the back of her shirt. The sight of angry red marks against her pale skin made my tears fall even harder. Such a large area. This must be excruciating for her. Swallowing my rage and worry, I hoisted her onto my back. Come on, I'm taking you to the hospital. We need x-rays to check for internal injuries. Suddenly lifted off the ground, Chu Shi flailed in panic before instinctively wrapping her arms around my neck, though she protested awkwardly. I'm fine, I can walk on my own. Do you want to tear your wound open? Doesn't that hurt? My voice turned sharp, but the threatening tone fell flat. It just sounded like a choked sob. The command hung in the air. The sound behind me suddenly stopped. After walking some distance without hearing a peep from her, I grew worried. Hey, you didn't pass out, did you? She replied, no. Relieved, I finally exploded. I saw everything. Which bastard hit you? We'll make sure he regrets this. After a moment of silence, Chu Shi relaxed and leaned on my shoulder, whispering softly, you're right, me, If my bestie hits someone, that person definitely had it coming. If my bestie gets hit, that person's even more in the wrong. 12. It takes over half an hour by taxi from school to the hospital. I rushed around handling her registration and payment. By the time her scan results confirmed it was just superficial injuries, it was already past 7 in the evening. Night had fallen completely, though fortunately the rain had stopped unnoticed at some point. The moon hung mid-sky, casting its silvery glow. The ground glistened with clear rainwater. As Chu Shi and I left the hospital, worried she might encounter that so-called brother of hers back home, I hesitated before asking, why don't you stay at my place for a couple days? Her eyes flickered slightly at the suggestion. Would that be okay? Absolutely. And let me tell you, my mom makes the most amazing noodles. With a playful grin, I took a few steps forward before turning around to walk backward while watching her. The night breeze swept by, tousling the strands of hair at my temples. Chu Shi gazed quietly at my smiling face before finally mirroring my expression with a soft alright. Suddenly realized how radiant she looks. Her eyes literally sparkle like stars. Ah, our sweet girl is being so genuine. If the male lead doesn't appreciate her, I'll just take her home with me. I'm kinda shipping their sisterly bond here. The female lead seems genuinely over the male lead, sending her BFF to the hospital while dumping him at some shabby clinic. Talk about favoritism. I saw the barrage of comments but didn't pay much attention. Since Chushi treats me with sincerity, I'll naturally return her kindness in kind. As for Lu Guanma, I've already banged my head against a brick wall once. Doing it again wouldn't be persistence, it'd be stupidity. 13. That night after dinner with Chushi, we lay side by side on the same bed. Exhausted from the day's travels, my eyelids grew heavy with sleep. Just as I was drifting off, a soft feminine voice whispered beside me, Luaning, why did you want to be friends with me? Half asleep, I mumbled, that's what besties do, besties. Hearing this, Chushi turned her head and stared at me intently. Yeah, we were best friends in our past lives, I mumbled drowsily, but Chushi found it amusing. She broke into spontaneous laughter before concluding, makes sense. I must have done something really good in my past life to deserve being your bestie now. No, I was the lucky one to have met her in my past life, but I was so exhausted that I merely whispered it in my heart before drifting into deep sleep, until the next morning, staring at that glass of murky green vegetable juice during breakfast, I gulped hard. Mom's always experimenting in the kitchen, but never quite gets it right. Not only are her creations culinary disasters, but I'm always her unwilling taste tester. Glancing at Chushi's perfectly normal milk, I licked my lips and said, hey try this veggie juice, it's delicious. Chushi didn't suspect a thing. Oh, okay. She grabbed the vegetable juice and took a big gulp, then immediately made a face. To make matters worse, my mom asked curiously, is it good? I could barely stand to look at her contorted expression. Chushi flushed crimson. Struggling to swallow the vegetable juice, Auntie, it's, gag, so, wretch delicious. I guiltily nibbled my sandwich in silence, yet could feel the resentful gaze burning into me from the side. Well, that's what besties do, share misery together. LMAO, yesterday's Chushi, so touched. Today's Chushi, too scared to move. Now that's what I call ride or die friendship. FL, some bestie energy, but not much LOLOLOL. 14. This weekend has been a roller coaster. Chushi no longer blindly takes my word for it, we're truly in this together, for better or worse, but thankfully, after this incident, she's become more talkative. For instance, when my mom made stir-fried bitter melon with eggs, Chushi proactively served me a portion. This looks delicious, you try it first. Me, you have some too, nothing like mutual destruction, haha, mission accomplished. Mom's the only happy one in this world. This routine continued right up until the college entrance exams. She'd drop by my place whenever she had free time, though she occasionally went home too. Aside from having to see Lu Guanma every day, there wasn't much to complain about. But after the incident at the infirmary, Lu Guanma seemed different somehow. What university are you applying to? The question caught me off guard as I was organizing test papers after the final mock exam. My fingers froze mid-motion. I'd been dead set on applying to northern universities together with him, but truth be told, I've always preferred the watery landscapes of Jiangnan, so I said frankly, barring any surprises, I'll probably apply to Nanjing University. Hearing this, Lu Guanma's brows furrowed slightly as he murmured, this shouldn't be happening. I heard him, but pretended not to. At this point, even someone as dense as me should have realized by now, he had been reborn too. He just refused to acknowledge our past connection, hence the deliberate pretense of being strangers. I played along with his charade. 15. But Lu Guanma suddenly became relentless. After school, Chushi went home due to family matters, so I found an empty study room to work by myself. Most of our senior year's final stretch was spent studying independently. When I finally snapped out of my thoughts, twilight had faded completely, leaving darkness enveloping the entire world. It was almost time for evening self-study. Just as I packed my textbooks and was heading to the classroom, the lights in the study room suddenly went out. What's going on? I fumbled around for the light switch, my heart pounding wildly. My waist accidentally hit the corner of the desk, sending a sharp pain shooting through me. I gasped, and suddenly, the sound of footsteps grew louder, approaching from a distance. Suddenly, a shadow fell across my vision. Who's there? I gasped and instinctively stepped backward, but someone grabbed my wrist and pulled me into a warm embrace. The familiar crisp scent lingered around me. I recognized him instantly. Lu Guanma, don't be afraid, he responded softly, his large hand clumsily patting my back as if trying to comfort me. My body suddenly stiffened, a strange feeling welling up in my chest. I think this happened in my past life too. taking advantage of the villa's blackout. I deliberately snuggled into his arms, but he coldly pushed me away. If you're afraid of the dark, go to bed. Truth is, I wasn't afraid of the dark, I just wanted to be closer to him. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was back then. Why would someone who doesn't care about me bother whether I'm scared or not? I don't think the male lead actually dislikes the female lead, he was just unconsciously in love before, but now he's finally realized it. Why do I feel like the female lead is being manipulative, playing dumb on purpose? If she wants to string him along, just say it outright. Hey upstairs commenter, stop simping for male characters, okay? Mention Lu Guanma and the barrage instantly turns into a battlefield. Suppressing my irritation, I pushed Lu Guanma away and said calmly, I'm not afraid, let's go back to the classroom for evening study. With that, I stepped past him and walked straight toward the door. Lu Guanma's arms suddenly empty, he turned sideways and called out urgently, Shen Luaning. My footsteps faltered, he stepped close until our eyes met, pain flashing in his gaze when confronted with my indifference. After a strained pause, he asked hoarsely, do you not like me anymore? I stayed silent for a moment before giving a slow nod. That simple gesture seemed to strike the young man like a physical blow. Lu Guanma swayed slightly, forcing a bitter smile. Are you angry I didn't recognize you right away? I shook my head. Not just that, hope flickered in his eyes. What is it? It was during our decade of joyless marriage that you gradually eroded all my love, but he'll never understand. Suddenly I lost all interest in discussing this with him. I just don't like it anymore. No particular reason. With that, I turned away without another glance at his expression. Only the boy remained in the dark corridor, the corners of his eyes slowly reddening like an abandoned puppy, just like countless times before when he'd left me standing alone. 16. After the college entrance exams ended, with the advantage of 2 lifetimes experience, I aced the tests and got admitted to Nanjing University. Chu Shi also scored well, but instead of NU, she applied to a prestigious southern university known for economics and management. When filling out applications, she hesitated for a long time. I could tell her mind was elsewhere. Only then did I find out, she was interested in business administration, though Nanjing University wasn't particularly renowned for this program. Remembering her career in a past life, I immediately said, just choose what you love, even if we're apart, it's fine, I can always visit you. Hearing this, Chu Shi's eyes glistened with tears. Luaning. I chuckled and patted her shoulder. Remember your old pal when you make it big, sis. As a humanities major, I might end up working for you after graduation. Better pay me well when that day comes. Chu Shi laughed. Deal, no problem. 17. But what I never expected was this. When registering at Nanjing University, I unexpectedly ran into Lu Guanma, who was supposed to be at a northern university. I heard his first love came back during summer break. I thought he'd take the chance to confess his feelings, but that's none of my business anymore. I pretended not to see him and headed straight to my dorm. In the following days, I attended classes and had meals as usual. On weekends, I'd dash off to hang out with Chu Shi. We enjoyed delicious food together and visited scenic spots. Those were fulfilling and joyful days. Maybe it's just my imagination, but I kept seeing Lu Guanma around campus, receiving an exquisite umbrella at the library during rainstorms, or finding a water bottle delivered by my roommate after P.E. class. This all felt hauntingly familiar. I used to do these very things long ago. Now the tables have turned. The male lead has probably never been this desperate in his life, going so far as to enroll in the same university just to chase after her. If it were me, I'd probably have softened my heart. Who wants to watch him play the devoted lover? He didn't cherish her when he should have. I'd rather see the female lead hanging out with her bestie. I lowered my gaze. Had it been Lu Guanma from my past life, I'd have been overjoyed by even the slightest step he took toward me. But alas, times have changed. Belated affection is worth nothing to anyone. 18. The year I graduated from university, Chu Shi and I stayed behind in a provincial capital down south to build our careers. She's got a sharp business mind. She actually launched her company during college, and now it's running like clockwork. I asked where she got the seed money. She arched an eyebrow. Inherited, obviously. That's when I finally realized. She was the heiress of the Yi family, though she took her mother's surname. Her father had secretly fathered a son with his childhood sweetheart before marrying her mother. The scandal broke on the day her mother gave birth, driving her into postpartum depression. She passed away not long after. Her father married his childhood sweetheart, who then spoiled her rotten with ulterior motives. During her senior year of high school, her father's health began deteriorating. Chushi went back to her grandfather's house and leveraged his influence to force her father into giving her half of the family fortune. It nearly drove her father mad with rage, but her father feared her grandfather would target the Yi family business, worried his son and beloved childhood sweetheart might end up with nothing, so he reluctantly handed over a portion of the assets. Still not satisfying enough. Even after hearing the whole story, I couldn't shake off this lingering resentment. I still remember when her half-brother hit her. I was about to call the police, but Chushi stopped me. She said it'd be pointless. Her father would always take her brother's side. They'll just brush it off as sibling squabbles when the time comes. It'll all come to nothing in the end. It's pointless. With a mix of bitterness and resignation, I had to let it go. Don't worry about him. He's all bark and no bite, a total fraud, without my father's backing. He'll crash and burn soon enough. Not worth dirtying my hands over. Noticing my gloom, Chushi pinched my cheek. Seeing I was still down, she fiddled with her phone for a moment. I didn't get it but assumed she was handling work stuff, so I didn't think much of it. It wasn't until noon the next day, while slacking off at work, that I suddenly received a massive transfer alert. Deposit of RMB 50,000,000 to your savings account ending XXXX. Available balance, 50,100,000 yuan. Stunned, I bolted straight to her office. Chushi, have you lost your mind? Why on earth would you transfer me such an insane amount out of the blue? Behind the desk, Chushi in her crisp women's suit paused mid-signature at the remark, tilting her head with a light chuckle. I know you've got no inheritance coming your way. Siss'll split hers with you. Didn't you always say prosperity shared is prosperity doubled? I let out a fangirl shriek. The next instant, I lunged forward and wrapped her in a bear hug. Oh my god, what an absolutely amazing bestie. 19. Imagine graduating college with sudden wealth while slacking off at your BFF's company. How's that for a life? Bliss, absolute bliss. I'm over the moon every single day. Pick me, pick me. Where do I sign up for a bestie like this? Sob, girlfriends really do have your back. When she's got money, she actually spends it on you. I'm absolutely delighted. Hee. My bestie is simply the best in the world. But this joyful mood was shattered when I got home. An uninvited guest was sitting on my living room couch. My mom shot me a confused look, silently asking, why didn't you tell me you were bringing your boyfriend home? I never expected to see Lu Guanma again, and for a moment I was completely stunned. I'll bet a pack of spicy strips that the female lead will go cozy up to the male lead once you've tasted the high life. It's hard to go back to ramen noodles. Me, oh, so you're a classmate. My mother chimed in. Lu Guanma's eyes instantly dimmed. It wasn't until after dinner when I walked him out. The dim streetlights stretched our shadows long across the pavement. After a long silence, the man suddenly spoke up. Your aunt mentioned she wants to set you up on a blind date. Me, it's too early for that. No rush. Before I could finish, he cut in. Would you still consider me? We could start over. Gazing into his earnest eyes, my heart skipped a beat before I smiled faintly and said, I'll pass. Now I've got both money and time to spare. For the rest of my days, all I want is to live joyfully. The end. Story 2. The day I received Tsinghua University's admission letter, my cousin knelt before me clutching her stomach, saying she was pregnant with my boyfriend's child and begging me to let them be together. I grinned from ear to ear. I was just worrying about how to break off the engagement with that scumbag. Isn't it great to graduate from a prestigious school, inherit the family fortune, and become a billionaire heiress? Men will only slow down my money-making speed. 1. After dying from overwork, I was reborn. The moment I opened my eyes, I met a pair of pitifully pleading eyes. My cousin Su Ro, dressed in a plain white dress, stood at my doorstep carrying a large suitcase. It was 1 month before the college entrance exam. My older cousin Su Ro, a junior in college, came to my house using the excuse that my place was closer to her school. Ruru, why didn't you tell your uncle in advance? I would have picked you up. My dad pushed me aside, pulled Su Ro into the house, and then moved her into my room, rubbing my sore arm where my father had bumped into me. I narrowed my eyes. What did I do in my past life again? The searing memory came back easily. Proud and arrogant, I refused to give up the room and had a huge fight with my father, enduring a hard slap from him. Because of this, my mother had a big argument with my father, making their already fragile relationship even more precarious. Not only that, but Su Ro then started getting flirtatious with my boyfriend Zhang Chuyang in all sorts of ways. Unwilling to let Su Ro take everything from me, I lost focus on my studies, obsessively thinking about how to make Su Ro leave my home and stay away from my boyfriend. As a result, Despite always being a top student, I underperformed and could only get into a vocational college based on my college entrance exam scores. After that, my parents divorced, and I ended up living with my father. Su-ro framed me for pushing her down the stairs, and my father kicked me out of the house. Su-ro married Zhang Chuyang, who also comes from a wealthy family, with a dowry of millions given by my father. After graduating from college, I couldn't find a suitable job and ended up working on a factory assembly line, dying from overwork. 2. Reborn. I voluntarily gave up my bedroom and moved into the attic on the 3rd floor, not because I'm afraid, but because I want to seize the opportunity of the college entrance exam. My past life experiences have taught me that only personal strength truly matters. I live alone on the 3rd floor. Enjoying perfect tranquility, I study late into the night every day. I pretended not to notice all the little interactions between Su-ro and Zhang Chuyang. Finally, the college entrance exams ended, and I scored high enough to be courted by both Tsinghua and Peking University. In the end, I chose Tsinghua. It wasn't until I received Tsinghua's admission letter that my anxious heart finally settled. I pushed open the attic window and exhaled a turbid breath. Now, it's time to settle the scores between me, Su-ro, Zhang Chuyang, and my father. 3. As I went downstairs, I happened to see Su-ro nestled in Zhang Chuyang's arms, smiling shyly. Spotting me, Zhang Chuyang abruptly pushed Su-ro away and strode toward me. Henin, you finally came down. You've been so busy studying lately that you had no time for me. Now you have to make it up to me and keep me company. As he spoke, Zhang Chuyang reached out to grab my hand. I took a step back, creating distance between us. But it seems like you already have someone keeping you company. I meaningfully glanced at Su-ro. After a brief moment of awkwardness, Zhang Chuyang quickly regained his composure and said with forced nonchalance, Henin, what nonsense are you thinking? The only reason I'm close to Su-ro is because she's your cousin. The merciless words turned Su-ro's face pale, yet I curled my lips in delight. My marriage to Zhang Chuyang was an arranged alliance between wealthy families. A childhood betrothal set from infancy. That's why in my past life, I always treated Zhang Chuyang as my future husband, making it unbearable when Su-ro stole him away. In my previous life at this point in time, due to my relentless interference, Zhang Chuyang and Su-ro had already developed a deep affection for each other. But now, perhaps because I'm no longer acting as the catalyst, Zhang Chuyang is still secretly seeing Su-ro behind my back. While playing along with Zhang Chuyang's act might make Su-ro uncomfortable, it disgusts me even more. How can I quickly break off my engagement with Zhang Chuyang? As I pondered, an idea quickly came to me. I gazed lovingly at Zhang Chuyang. Since I'll have to marry you eventually anyway, why don't we just get married now? 4. Get married. Su-ro was the first to exclaim in shock. What? Cousin doesn't want to. Or perhaps cousin wants to replace me and marry Chuyang. The piercing words made Su-ro's lips tremble. Unsure of what to say, Zhang Chuyang's expression also turned somewhat awkward. Clearly, he hadn't had enough of the joy from playing both sides yet, so I added fuel to the fire. Chuyang, I actually got into Tsinghua University. Auntie would be so happy if she knew. You really got into Tsinghua. Zhang Chuyang's eyes lit up. After seeing me nod, his face erupted with joy. Wait here, I'm going home right now to tell my mom. The Zhang family made their fortune in the coal mining business years ago, though the mining industry declined later. Their family wealth remained substantial, and they invested in other ventures. Although their family is wealthy, none of them have achieved academic success. The most educated person in their family is Zhang Chuyang. He, who is 3 years older than me, entered society directly after high school without attending college. As a result, the Zhang family is often criticized behind their backs, being called upstarts who lack sophistication. The more one lacks something, the more they flaunt it. No matter where she goes, Mother Zhang brags about my good grades. Now that I've been admitted to Tsinghua, she surely hopes I can marry into the Zhang family soon. The moment Zhang Chuyang left my house, Su-ro couldn't hold back anymore. Clutching her stomach, she knelt before me. Henin, I've wronged you. I'm pregnant with Zhang Chuyang's child. I know, after all. The safety helmets used by Zhang Chuyang and Su-ro were the ones I had pre-punctured with a needle. My resounding words abruptly halted Su-ro's sobs. How could you possibly know? With a slight curl of my lips, I said nothing and stepped upstairs. It seems there's a tough battle to fight this afternoon. I need to rest well for a while to conserve my energy. 5. Bang bang bang. I was awakened by violent knocking on the door. Immediately after, my father's irritable voice sounded outside, locking the door inside the house. All you do every day is study and sleep. I might as well have raised a pig. Why don't you learn from your cousin? She gets up early every morning to cook, and, frowning, I walked straight to the door and opened it. Seeing my expressionless face, my father's incessant nagging suddenly stopped. His face then twisted in anger. "You damn brat, how dare you look at me with those eyes?" As he spoke, his hand was about to strike me. I quickly descended the stairs, causing him to miss his swing. Downstairs, Father Zhang, Mother Zhang, and Zhang Chuyang were laughing heartily. Their smiles widened several times over when they saw me. Su Ro, who was serving tea nearby, had tears in her eyes. It seems the Zhang Chuyang family still doesn't know about Su Ro's pregnancy. TSK. And here I thought Su Ro was so capable. I never thought I'd have to be the one to expose this matter personally. 6. Uncle, Auntie. I walked up to Zhang's mother. Zhang's mother immediately noticed the Tsinghua admission letter in my hand. Taking it to examine repeatedly, then she passed the admission letter to Zhang's father before taking my hand. "Our Hanin is truly outstanding. I absolutely adore you." As soon as my father came downstairs, she couldn't wait to say to him, "In-laws, Chuyang is already in his 20s, and Hanin has come of age. How about we hold the wedding first and register the marriage later? The Zhang family's status is above ours." Hearing Mrs. Zhang's words, my father temporarily set aside his dissatisfaction with me and forced a smile. "Of course, that sounds good. So, when do you think would be the best time to set the date?" Seeing Zhang's parents and my father already starting to discuss the wedding date for me and Zhang Chuyang, I could only find it ridiculous. My mother hasn't returned from work yet, and they're blatantly disregarding her presence. Looking at Su Ro beside me, her eyes were fixed intently on Zhang Chuyang. Zhang Chuyang, who would usually melt at Su Ro's smile, now sat upright, completely ignoring her hints. TSK, in the face of interests, their love seems insignificant. How about next month then? Let's have the wedding before Hanin starts school. Sounds good to me, Mr. and Mrs. Zhang immediately agreed with my father. At this moment, I spoke up. "Uncle, Auntie, I also want to marry Chuyang," but, as I spoke, I cast an accusing glance at Su Ro and said pitifully, "But she actually went behind my back to seduce Chuyang and even got pregnant with his child." 7. My words shocked everyone present. "Hanin, are you mistaken? She's your cousin. I wish I were wrong too, but she personally told me this not long ago." At this moment, the eye drops I applied earlier could finally take effect. Tears plopped down. I lowered my head pretending to cry, while stealing glances at Su Ro from the corner of my eye. Among the 3 Su brothers, only my father managed to get into university and married my mother. He leveraged my mother's family influence to establish the Su group, but the real power in the company lies with my mother. My father is just a nominal president. As for my father's brothers and their families, though their lives improved considerably with my father's discreet support, they still couldn't compare to our household. Su Ro has envied me since childhood. I've spelled it out this clearly. If Su Ro still doesn't seize this chance to marry into wealth, I'd actually look down on her. Fortunately, this time, she didn't let me down. Su Ro, under everyone's gaze, knelt before Zhang's parents. "Uncle, Auntie, Chuyang and I truly love each other." Before Zhang's parents could react, Zhang Chuyang couldn't wait to stand up. I clearly took safety measures. "How could you possibly be pregnant?" With that one sentence, the matter was confirmed. "Chuyang, I don't know how this happened. Didn't you say you never liked Suihan, that she was dull and wooden, and that you'd break off the engagement with her to be with me eventually? You also said, 'Shut your mouth.'" In his panic, Zhang Chuyang slapped Su Ro across the face. The next second, Zhang's father kicked Zhang Chuyang in the stomach. "You disgraceful brat, you've shamed our entire Zhang family. Why are you hitting our son?" Mother Zhang protested. "It's clearly that slut Su Ro seducing my boy. If anyone should be beaten, it's her." Mother Zhang grabbed Su Ro by the hair. My father rushed to intervene. In her fury, Mother Zhang even scratched my father, afraid of getting his face scratched. My dad took a step back. Then Su Ro was pinned to the ground and beaten by Zhang's mother. Unable to dodge, Su Ro suddenly clutched her stomach. "The baby, my baby." A streak of crimson flowed from Su Ro's legs onto the floor. 8. Fearing a manslaughter charge, Zhang's mother immediately stopped and dialed 120. Half an hour later, Su Ro was carried onto the ambulance. Zhang's parents, Zhang Chuyang, and my father anxiously followed behind. I sat on the living room sofa, watching the figures heading outside, a cold smirk curling at the corner of my lips. Just at that moment, a gloomy gaze swept over. "It's my dad." He suddenly turned his head. Just in time to catch the smile on my face, I instinctively suppressed my smile. then quickly realized I was no longer the timid and incompetent version of myself from my past life who had been oppressed by him. I raised my head and flashed a bold smile at my father. Seeing my defiant look for the first time, my father's anger flared up as if he was about to come back and settle the score with me. However, the ambulance outside couldn't wait any longer. So he had no choice but to board it and leave. Not long after the ambulance left, my mother returned. She was dressed in a fitted business suit with her hair up, though in her 40s with fine lines at the corners of her eyes. She still retained her graceful charm. Her hair was slightly disheveled, clearly showing she had rushed back in a hurry. "Hanin, Auntie told me something happened. What's going on?" Her tone was somewhat cold and rigid from being preoccupied with work. Yet her eyes were full of concern. Unfortunately, this concern was something I failed to see in my past life. Back then, it never even crossed my mind whether Mom worked so hard for my sake. I just thought she only cared about making money and didn't love me at all. I've been rebellious since childhood, always going against my mother, even when my mother gave up the Sioux group and divorced my father, with the sole condition of taking me with her. I stubbornly chose to stay with my father because I couldn't bear losing to Sioux Row. In the end, my disappointed mother left with nothing, giving up everything to go abroad. Thinking about it, I felt my nose sting with unshed tears. "Mom," I threw myself into her arms, holding her tightly. "Mom, you're finally back." 9. In my past life, I was rarely close to my mother. Since being reborn, we've become much closer. But compared to ordinary mother-daughter relationships, there's still some distance between us. My mother's body stiffened at first. Then she relaxed and patted my back awkwardly. "Hanin, did someone wrong you?" I nodded and told her what happened today. Zhang Chuyang and Su Ro were secretly together. They even had a child. How outrageous. My mother fumed. "I'm going to confront them right now. The Zhang family and the eldest son's family must give me an explanation today." With that, my mom pulled me out the door. She drove me to the hospital. When we arrived at the hospital, Suru was lying weakly on the hospital bed. Zhang's parents, Zhang Chuyang, and my dad were all in the ward. The other three looked grim. Only my father fussed over Su-ro with concern. "Ruru, does it hurt? Are you hungry? Tell uncle if you feel unwell." "My baby." Su-ro stroked her belly with tears. My father's tone grew even gentler. "The baby is fine. You just need to rest and recover now. Don't worry about anything else." "Thank you, uncle." Unable to listen any longer, my mom pushed open the hospital room door and sneered. "You were never this considerate with Hanin. Anyone would think Su-ro isn't your niece but your illegitimate daughter." 10. My mom was practically speaking for me, saying everything I wanted to say. As expected, my dad also got angry, though incompetent in his career. He always surpassed my mom in temper. "Jing Yunru, what nonsense are you talking about?" I've seen this side of my father many times, but this time, I caught a trace of something on his face that I'd never noticed before. Guilt. I glanced at my father, then looked at Su-ro lying on the bed. A bold idea began to form in my mind. Nonsense. Su-ro even dared to steal Hanin's fiancé. How shameless can she be? And you're still defending her. Do you even care about us, your wife and daughter? Su-ro is still young and doesn't know better. Besides, she's not an outsider, she's my niece. Seeing the two about to erupt into a fierce fight, I quickly grabbed my mom's hand. "Mom." Coming to her senses, my mom took a deep breath, temporarily suppressing her anger toward my dad, and turned to look at Zhang's parents. The previously amused expressions of Zhang's parents immediately tensed up. "In-laws, well, don't call me in-laws. Since your son has no sense of decency, let's just call off this marriage." Before Mr. and Mrs. Zhang could respond, my father hastily stepped forward. "What a waste to call it off. Why not let Ruru marry Chuyang in Ihan's place? That's absolutely not acceptable." Mrs. Zhang's eyes widened instantly. "Hanin got into Tsinghua University, but what about Su-ro? She went to some no-name college and comes from the countryside. Our Zhang family would never accept such a daughter-in-law. In my opinion, Su-ro should just get rid of the baby in her belly and go back to the countryside. Let's pretend this never happened. We can't let some worthless woman ruin the harmony between our two families." "Right, my dear in-laws." Mrs. Zhang looked at my mother. My mother glanced at my father's livid face. She patted my hand reassuringly and then said leisurely, "This might actually work." 11. Seeing my mother relent, Mrs. Zhang heaved a huge sigh of relief. "In that case, I'll have the doctor prepare the abortion procedure right away." As she spoke, Mrs. Zhang made to arrange it. Su-ro, who had been lying weakly in bed struggling to speak, suddenly jumped up and clung to Zhang Chuyang's leg. "Chuyang, how could you bear to treat me like this? Woo-woo, she cried pitifully, her face wet with tears. Zhang Chuyang's face showed signs of inner struggle. Seeing this, Madame Zhang became furious. You shameless wench, don't touch my son, as she spoke. She tried to pull Su Ro away. At this moment, two figures rushed in. How dare you bully my daughter? I'll fight you to the death. The ones who rushed in were Su Ro's parents. They had clearly just received the news and hurried over. Seeing Su Ro being bullied, they immediately pushed Zhang's mother aside and started beating her. Old Zhang also joined the fight. Su Ro's parents were accustomed to farm work and had great strength, making old Zhang and his wife no match for them. Seeing his parents howling in pain from the beating, Zhang Chuyang also charged in. The six of them tumbled into a tangled mess on the ground. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The laughter caught my father's attention. He strode toward me angrily. Sui-han, you've gone too far. If it weren't for you, how could things have come to this? Me? What does it have to do with me? Isn't it Su Ro who's shameless? Shut the hell up. I won't. What? Could it be true like my mom said? Su Ro isn't your niece but your illegitimate daughter. As my words hung in the air, my father's face turned livid with rage. Nonsense. Today I'm going to teach you a proper lesson. With that, my father raised his hand to strike me. My mother instinctively shielded me behind her. How dare you? Why wouldn't I dare? Xing Yunru, if you stand in my way, don't think I won't hit you too. Humph. A cold, mocking young voice came from outside the hospital room. How ridiculous. This is the first time I've seen a father who can't stand to see his own daughter happy. 12. I turned around and saw a face that was both strange and familiar. The youth's features were delicate, with sharp contours and extraordinary handsomeness. The scrapes at the corner of his eye and the blood at his lips didn't mar his good looks, but rather added a touch of bewitching allure. His single eye bore obvious ferocity, brimming with menace. He is my high school classmate Qin Zhou. After graduating from high school, I lost touch with many of my classmates. The reason he seemed familiar was that, before my rebirth, I happened to meet him once. At that time, I was heading home from work as usual when two men stopped me on the street. It was Qin Zhou who appeared in the luxury car. With just a simple honk, the two men were scared off and ran away. I thanked Qin Zhou, to which he replied, no need to thank me, old classmate. Only then did I manage to dredge up the few fragmented memories I had of Qin Zhou from the depths of my mind. While grateful, I also felt deeply embarrassed. My high school classmates are doing really well, while I, withdrawing my wandering thoughts, I look again at the face before me. He's not as composed now as he was before I was reborn, appearing much more youthful, but still handsome. Who do you think you are? Our family matters are none of your business, you little brat. Today I'm going to teach my own daughter a lesson. Mocked by an outsider, my extremely prideful father felt even more humiliated. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to hit me. My mother shielded me in front of her, but his slap didn't stop. He actually intended to hit my mother too. I moved to block my father's slap, but a hand beat me to it, firmly restraining his arm. It was Qin Zhou. My furious father wanted to scold Qin Zhou too, but his hand was held by Qin Zhou and couldn't move at all. The two stood in confrontation, Qin Zhou looking relaxed while my father's face turned the color of liver. Eventually, the medical staff noticed the commotion and rushed into the ward to break up the fight. My father took the opportunity to withdraw his hand and turned to look at Su Ro. I turned around to thank Qin Zhou, only to find that he had already walked away. At the far end of the long corridor, his figure appeared frail. A sense of loneliness lingered. 13. Half an hour later. With the hospital staff's reassurance, the crowd present barely calmed down, except for my father, who pretended to care about Su Ro while actually staying aloof. Everyone else had tear-streaked faces, disheveled appearances, looking utterly wretched. The Zhang family held their chins high, exuding arrogance. Su Ro's parents lowered their heads, filled with anxiety. Their greatest dream was to have Su Ro marry into a wealthy family. Yet moments ago, they were beating that very wealthy family to the ground. The child in Su Ro's belly must be aborted, Father Zhang angrily declared. Mother Zhang chimed in. I'd rather die than let Su Ro step into our household. That's unacceptable, Father Su protested. Your Zhang Chuyang got our Su Ro pregnant. If you won't take responsibility, we'll make a scene at your company's entrance and let the public judge who's right. Su's father's words made Zhang's parents turn pale. 200,000. That's a human life. You think you can buy a life for 200,000? You, Zhang's father interrupted Su's mother's relentless demands. 500,000. This time, as soon as he finished speaking, Su Daqiang and Lu Meifang eagerly nodded. Deal, on the hospital bed. Su-ro cried until she fainted. She really fainted. Unfortunately, even after fainting, she couldn't escape her fate of going under the knife. After dealing with Su Dacheong's family, the exhausted Zhang parents turned to my mother-in-laws. Once the baby in Su-ro's belly is gone, let Chu-yang marry Han. What do you say? My mother's eyes flickered. That depends on how your Chu-yang behaves. Don't worry. If Chu-yang ever messes around again, I'll break his legs. Zhang's mother pulled Zhang Chu-yang over. Zhang Chu-yang absent-mindedly nodded in agreement. His eyes kept darting toward the direction where Su-ro was being pushed away. Without chatting much with Zhang's mother, my mom took me away. In the car, while driving, my mom asked me, "What do you think about the marriage arrangement with Zhang Chu-yang?" 14. I wouldn't want that scumbag even if you paid me. The mere thought of Zhang Chu-yang fills me with disgust. So repulsive it makes me physically ill. A cheating, cowardly, irresponsible man with not a single redeeming quality. I must have been blind in my past life to compete with Su-ro over a piece of trash. My words eased some of the worry between my mother's brows. So what do you want to do now? I want to break off the engagement with Zhang Chu-yang. Dragging things out with Zhang Chu-yang for a while might hurt him and Su-ro more deeply. But just the thought of bearing the title of Zhang Chu-yang's fiancé makes me sick. Mom, if Su-ro's pregnancy is terminated, wouldn't the Zhang family just keep clinging to me? I shared my concerns with my mother. She gave me a reassuring smile. Don't worry, leave it to Mom. When we got home, my mother first called Zhang's mother-in-laws. Has the child in Su-ro's womb been aborted yet? Not yet. The doctor said they need to wait until she wakes up to check her physical condition before performing the surgery. I think that slut Su-ro is clearly faking her faint. Exactly. What kind of decent person would seduce their own sister's boyfriend? In-laws, you mustn't soften at the critical moment. Chu-yang isn't infertile. Once he marries Hanin in the future, they can have 8 or 10 children. After ending the call with Zhang's mother, my mom turned to look at me, before I could even ask. She made her stance clear. Zhang Chu-yang is an only child. Back then, his parents went through great efforts to have him. Apparently, his father had some issues in that department, so Zhang's mother might not allow Su-ro on the operating table due to concerns about continuing the family line. My eyes lit up with realization. My mother smiled and tapped my forehead. Clever. This way, the Zhang family won't have the face to pester us anymore, and even if Su-ro manages to bear a child, the Zhangs will still look down on her. Hearing this, I looked at my mother with admiration in my eyes. Mom, you're amazing. My mother smiled and hugged me, gently stroking my head. No one can bully my daughter. 15. Feeling my mother's warm embrace, I couldn't stop my nose from tingling with emotion. My mother had said these same words in my past life. How had I responded back then? I said, if you really don't want me to be bullied, you should help me win Zhang Chu-yang back. But Hanin, Zhang Chu-yang isn't worth it or not. I just like him. I was like a person possessed. My only wish was to separate Su-ro and Zhang Chu-yang. Unable to dissuade me, my mother swallowed her pride and went to Zhang's parents, only to be looked down upon by them. Exactly. Even though Zhang Chu-yang treated me like this, I still couldn't bring myself to let go. With a daughter like me, no wonder my mother gets looked down upon by others. Hanin, what's wrong with you? Sensing my emotional turmoil, my mother asked with concern. Buried in my mother's arms, I muttered, Mom, I think Dad, he doesn't deserve to be my father. It's as if we weren't close enough before. There was always something between my mom and Dad too. Normally my mom was busy with work, while my dad squandered her money showing off everywhere. Looking back now, their relationship had been troubled for a long time, but for my sake, my mom kept enduring life with my dad. But now I see clearly a father who doesn't care about me is someone I can do without. I wish my mother would file for divorce from my father, but she didn't. She just held me tightly, and after a long while, let out a sigh. Although somewhat disappointing, it's understandable. After all, in my previous life, my mother filed for divorce from my father a year later, by which time I had already been mentally broken by Zhang Chu-yang, Su-ro, and my father. She was completely disillusioned with my father and wanted to take me away, but now, apart from defending Su-ro, my father doesn't seem to have committed any other unforgivable acts. Although I really want to get rid of my dad soon, I know some things can't be rushed. 16. In the afternoon, my mom went out to prepare for my college celebration banquet. I called all the villa servants over and ordered, throw out all of Su-ro's belongings. Yes. I tolerated Su-ro for a while just for the sake of learning. From now on, I won't give anyone the chance to hurt me again. After all of Su-ro's belongings were thrown out, the servants cleaned my room, and I moved back from the attic. In the evening, my mom came home first, and right after, my dad returned. When he saw us, his arrogant expression faded, replaced by an awkward look. He walked up to my mom, took her hand and said, "At the hospital earlier, I was just too angry. Please don't be mad at me." Normally, even when he knows he's done something wrong, my dad never apologizes. He must be after something now. My mother withdrew her hand, her expression indifferent. From the looks of it, Suro didn't abort the child in her belly, having his thoughts exposed directly. My father felt somewhat awkward. Zhang Chuyang got tested, low sperm count. It might be hard to have children later. So this is a last resort. So what? My mother stared steadily at my father. Faced with my mother's composure, my father's guilt turned to anger. It's Yihan's own fault for not being likable enough to win Zhang Chuyang's affection. Since Ro is already carrying his child, this marriage might as well go to her. My mother also has a tough temper and immediately darkened her face. Su Zhennan, I don't care about this marriage. But what do you mean? What do you mean by saying Henin is unlikable? In your eyes, is your niece Suro the only likable one? Isn't that the case? My father slammed the table and stood up, pointing at me. Look at her face like I owe her millions. Where is she likable? Unlike Ro, who serves me tea, asks about my well-being, and even, 17, shut up. My mother was so angry her chest heaved up and down, worried my mother might harm her health from anger. I quickly stepped forward to soothe her. Mom, let's not be angry. It's fine if Dad doesn't love me. I still have you. Seeing my worry, my mom took a deep breath, trying hard to suppress her inner anger. Ignoring Su Zhennan, she took my hand and led me upstairs. Upstairs, she looked at me and said, "Your dad She wanted to say something, but the words stuck in her throat and she couldn't get them out. I squeezed my mother's hand back. Mom, in my heart, I don't have a father. From childhood till now, my father never cared for me, never looked after me, never attended my parent-teacher meetings, never. He wasn't involved in any big or small matters of my life. He didn't even have a shred of affection for me, only disgust. But with Suro, it was different. Only in front of her did he act like a father. Sometimes I even feel, thinking of that suspicion in my heart, I gritted my teeth and continued, that Suro is actually his daughter, and I'm just an obstacle who stole his daughter's position. Henin. Startled by my words, my mother exclaimed, I can assure you. You are your father's child. As for Suro, your father is selfish. He's always wanted to drain me to support his two brothers. Deep down, he believes he and his two brothers are the real family, treating me as an outsider. He places you in the same position as me, which is why rest assured, Suro is definitely not your father's child. If your father doesn't cherish you, I'll love you twice as much. Hearing this, I nodded and stopped dwelling on the issue, then said. So my father's idea is to have Suro marry Zhang Chuyang. Did James' parents accept her just because she's pregnant? If that's the case, Suro is getting off too easily. 18, of course not. I know Mr. and Mrs. Zhang too well. They're probably planning to have Suro secretly give birth, then raise the child as yours and Zhang Chuyang's. They got your father to come back as their mediator. But how could your father bear to let his precious niece suffer such injustice? That's why he came back this time, to have me intervene and persuade Zhang's parents to let Suro marry into the Zhang family. I'm not that foolish. After that argument with your dad just now, he probably won't dare bring it up again. After hearing my mom's words, I couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. Mom, you're amazing. Of course, my mom said with a proud smirk. Your college celebration banquet is scheduled in 3 days. I'll send you the hotel address via WeChat later. Just focus on inviting your classmates these days. Leave everything else to me. On the day of the celebration banquet, I'll publicly announce the cancellation of your engagement with Zhang Chuyang. Okay, Mom. Back in my room, I still felt somewhat puzzled. My mother's abilities are even more outstanding than I imagined. She's so intelligent that she can confidently assert Suro wasn't born to my father. Could it be that I was truly mistaken about this point? Shaking my head, I temporarily pushed this question to the back of my mind. I took out my phone and sent invitations for the college celebration banquet to several close friends. When reaching the last invitation, I thought of Qin Zhou. He was my classmate, but during high school, I had very few impressions of him. From what I remember, he always sat in the back row of the classroom, either sleeping or playing with his phone during class, and the teachers couldn't be bothered to discipline him. He often got into fights with others and was frequently called to the principal's office with his parents. He was the epitome of a rebellious student. Yet because of his good looks, his desk drawer was always stuffed with love letters. He never even touched those letters, routinely tossing them into the trash. Our interactions were pitifully few, yet across lifetimes, he helped me twice. After wrestling with it for a moment, I still sent Qingzhou a message, since I wasn't very familiar with him. My tone was relatively polite. My college celebration banquet is in 3 days. Would you be available? Unexpectedly, the reply came quickly, just a simple word, okay. 19. Several close friends, regardless of how well they did in exams, are all having their college celebration banquets these days. That day, as I was neatly dressed and ready to go out, my father sitting on the sofa gave me a once-over. His eyes sharpening. Ihan, what do you want? My tone was cold. Frowning with displeasure, my father spoke up. Your cousin is still lying in the hospital recovering. How can you still have the mind to go out and have fun? By your logic, since cousin is still lying sick in bed, how come you have the leisure to drink tea at home? Seems to me you should be by her side in the hospital every single minute. My blunt retort made my father's expression darken. I stayed up late last night, so I can't keep my eyes open today. Oh. I was in a hurry to leave and couldn't be bothered to waste more words on him. As I reached the door, my father's voice came again. Remember to find time to visit your cousin. Probably asking me to visit Su Ro was just an excuse. The real intention was to have her lecture me. As if deaf to his words, I turned and walked away. After attending my friend's college celebration banquet, on the way back, I asked the driver to take a detour to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, Su Ro was sitting on the bed eating fruit fed to her by Su Daqiang and Lu Meifeng. Our Ruru is truly remarkable. It seems she'll marry into wealth sooner or later. What's the use of Su Yihan being book-smart when she can't even keep a man? When you marry Zhang Chuyang, have your uncle give you a bigger dowry. The three of them had their schemes all worked out, their calculations clicking away loudly. I pushed the door open at just the right moment. But Aunt Zhang just called me and said Chuyang would never marry Su Ro. Once Su Ro gives birth, she'll be sent packing back to the countryside. 20. My words caused the expressions of everyone in the room to change dramatically. Ihan, things have come to this. Even if you marry Zhang Chuyang, you can only have his body, not his heart. At this moment, the smugness on Lu Meifeng's face completely vanished, replaced by bitter anguish. Ihan, you've been fortunate since childhood. Lacking nothing, Ro is different. Could you please not compete with her for Chuyang? As Lu Meifeng spoke, Su Ro was already in tears. Han Yen, for the sake of me being your elder sister, could you please let me go? Su Daqiang's attitude remained firm. Ihan, even if you refuse to break off the engagement with Chuyang, your father will find a way to make Sura marry him instead. If you don't let go now, you'll only be humiliating yourself when the time comes. The three of them worked in perfect coordination, using both carrot and stick. If this were the kind and weak-willed me from my past life, I probably would have blamed myself already. But, what do you mean by let you off? It was Su Ro who shamelessly seduced my fiancé and got pregnant with his child. I must have been cursed for 8 lifetimes to be involved with people like you. Listen here, Su Ro, no matter what tricks you pull, I won't cancel my engagement to Zhang Chuyang. Go ahead and have the baby. When the time comes, your child will call me mom, while you'll forever remain in the shadows, at most hearing your child call you auntie. Hearing this, everyone in the room was left speechless with anger. Bang! The meal delivery auntie who just walked in accidentally broke a bowl at that moment. I'm so sorry, it's my clumsy hands. She flusteredly tried to pick up the broken ceramic pieces from the floor and accidentally cut her hand. Unable to watch any longer, I stepped forward. Let me handle this. I crouched down to help her pick up the broken bowl pieces. After gathering them, I stood up, ready to throw these into the trash bin. As I raised my eyes, my gaze inadvertently fell upon the face of the meal delivery auntie, and I couldn't look away. Similar, she looked so much like Su Ro. 21. The conjecture I had previously suppressed resurfaced once again. Noticing me staring at her face, the meal delivery aunt quickly lowered her head and said to me, "Thank you, it's nothing." I comfortingly patted her shoulder and casually plucked a strand of hair from her head. Just as I stepped out of the ward door, I saw Zhang Chuyang. His expression was extremely excited. Henin, that's wonderful. You don't mind Su Ro giving birth to my child and are even willing to be the child's real mother. Don't worry, I'll definitely treat you well from now on. As he spoke, his eyes were filled with deep affection as he looked at me. It seems he overheard what I just said in the hospital room. I almost want to puke. In my past life, how blind must I have been to feel resentful that Su Ro stole such a worthless thing? What about Su Ro then? I deliberately raised my voice. Just give her some money after she gives birth to the child, Zhang Chuyang said with complete indifference. Indoors, as Zhang Chuyang's words were spoken, another wave of exclamations arose. Su Ro fainted again. as for whether it's real or fake fainting, I don't care. I looked at Zhang Chuyang expressionlessly. What I said earlier was just to deliberately provoke Su Rong. From the moment you hooked up with Su Rong, we no longer have any relationship. Please tell your parents this when you get back, so they won't go around saying I'm your family's future daughter-in-law every day. Being associated with people like you is actually quite embarrassing. After saying this, I ignored Zhang Chuyang's reaction and walked away. 22. The day before the college celebration banquet, my mom and I returned after choosing dresses. Discovered Su Ro and her parents at my house. The family of 3 lay on the sofa, munching melon seeds while watching TV. The villa was littered with melon seed shells and spilled tea. Utterly chaotic. What are you doing here? I stared at them. Su Daqiang leaned further back into the sofa. What kind of talk is that, Ihan? We're family. Ruru just got out of the hospital and shouldn't be inconvenienced. If she doesn't stay here, where else would she stay? At that moment, a servant came downstairs carrying some belongings. I took a closer look and realized they were actually my things from my room. Noticing my gaze, Su Ro spoke up with an innocent expression. Henin, Uncle said I need a good environment to recover, so I'm afraid you'll have to stay in the attic or the guest room. Holy cow, they actually took over my room again without notifying me. I was furious. Just as I was about to speak, my mom cut in ahead of me. Security, throw this family of 3 out. How dare you? Do you know who I am? I'm the elder brother of the master of this villa. If you dare lay a hand on me, I'll have you all fired. Su Daqiang roared furiously. However, the security guards completely ignored them. After all, this villa was part of my maternal grandparents' dowry to my mother. The 3 who were thrown out sat at the entrance of my villa, cursing and grumbling. I said slowly, keep shouting and I'll call the police. As I spoke, I took out my phone. When I pressed 110, the 3 immediately fell silent. They got up from the ground and left with their meager belongings. Su Ro, I called out to her at that moment. What else do you want? Su Ro could no longer keep up the act. Clutching her stomach, she looked at me with full of wariness and hatred. Don't you dare touch my child. Ha, I let out a cold laugh. Just having a child won't get you into the Zhang family. 23. The Zhangs value their reputation above all. Only by making it known to everyone that you're carrying Zhang Chuyang's child might the Zhangs allow you to enter their household openly. How could you be so kind? Su Ro's expression was deeply moved. She wasn't completely brainless after all. Soon, she figured it out. Suihan, you did this on purpose. You want to drag the Zhang family down with you in disgrace. Yes, I did it on purpose. I've given you the opportunity. Take it or leave it. Not long after the Su Daqiang family left, my father returned. In the living room, he had an unprecedented argument with my mother. Because of me, because of Su Ro. Their quarrel started with Su Ro seducing Zhang Chuyang, then escalated far beyond that. My father felt that over all these years, my mother's financial dominance had constantly undermined his dignity. As for my mom, aside from feeling I'd been wronged, her biggest emotional knot was my dad's years of emotional neglect. Even my usually elegant and composed mother couldn't hold back her emotional breakdown at this moment. Su Zhennan, you're just spineless, utterly useless, and a complete male chauvinist. If you won't protect your own wife and child, you're nothing but a heartless, ungrateful wretch with no eyes to see. Jing Yunru, you're asking for death. My father raised his hand, about to strike my mother. Of course, his slap never landed on my mother. Mid-air, it was intercepted by security. Beat Su Zhennan to death. The harder you hit, the bigger the bonus. 24. Next, the living room was filled with Su Zhennan's screams of agony. I've wanted to do this for a long time, even if in my past life I only ended up attending a vocational college. It wasn't impossible to make a good life through hard work. It's Su Zhennan, Su Ro, and Zhang Chuyang. No matter what job I find, they'll use their power to ruin it for me. In my tragic past life, though I was partly to blame for being blind to the truth, I never did anything truly evil from start to finish. It was these villains who kept pushing me to the edge. The moment I was reborn, I wanted to beat Su Zhennan to death. But when I actually did it, I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected. Because of my mom's face was full of hurt. Mom, I stepped forward to hold my mother's hand and called out cautiously. Mom's fine. My mother forced a faint smile at me. Only when Su Zhennan was beaten into silence did my mother say to the security guards, "Stop." I still felt somewhat unwilling to let Su Zhennan off so easily. My mother patted my hand reassuringly. Tomorrow is your college celebration banquet. It wouldn't be good if this escalated. With that, I said nothing more. Su Zhennan was sent to the hospital, and at the ward's entrance, my mother specifically arranged for someone to keep watch. At night, the light in my mother's room remained on, unable to rest easy. I walked to my mother's room door and saw her inside, gathering all the photos she had with my father. First, she looked at them reminiscing about the past, then tore them to pieces fiercely. Indeed, I only saw my father's faults but failed to see everything he and my mother had been through together. Noticing my arrival, my mother waved at me. I walked over and nestled into my mother's embrace. My mother's voice came from above. When I wanted to marry your father, your grandparents disagreed, saying he came from a poor background and lacked personal capability. I was bewitched by his sweet words and was determined to marry him. Now that things have come to this, it seems I truly made the wrong choice. 25. Mom, everyone makes wrong choices in life. What matters is realizing your mistakes in time. Besides, I raised my head and looked at her. Besides, if you hadn't been with Dad, maybe you wouldn't have such a smart and lovely daughter like me. My joking tone successfully brought a smile to my mom's face. She looked at me and asked seriously, Hanin, if your dad and I get divorced, would you be okay with that? Yes. Would you choose to be with me? I would. This time, I answered without hesitation. Perhaps my answer gave my mother strength, as confidence returned to her face. After your college celebration banquet ends tomorrow, I'll bring up divorce with him, okay? I hugged my mom and slept with her. I only got up after her breathing became steady, found one of my father's short hairs on the pillow and took it out of the bedroom. Early the next morning, I made an excuse to go out first and went to the hospital to collect Sue Rowe's hair, then submitted hair samples from Sue Rowe and my father, as well as Sue Rowe and the meal delivery aunt for paternity testing. After returning home, my mother and I set off for the hotel together. As noon approached, the guests arrived one after another. My father was supposed to be recuperating in the hospital, yet he insisted on getting up to attend my college celebration banquet. I was initially worried he might cause a scene at the banquet, but my mother reassured me that he's too vain for that, which eased my mind. Just as my mother predicted, my father, who usually couldn't be bothered to glance at me, was now grinning so widely that even the bandages on his face couldn't hide his smile. Old Sue, your daughter is really making you proud. Of course, she takes after me. Someone looked at his pitiful state and asked with concern, what happened to you? How did you get so badly injured? Those shadows darkened his deep eyes. My dad's smile remained bright. Just celebrating too hard after my daughter got into Tsinghua, had one too many drinks and ended up like this. 26. Hearing this, my mother and I exchanged glances, barely able to suppress our laughter. I have to admit, he's quite good at making excuses for himself. This talent for blatantly lying really comes in handy. Guests came in wave after wave, until finally, under my mother's eager anticipation, my grandparents arrived. Back then, my grandparents were angry because my mother stubbornly married my father. Over the years, although they secretly helped my mother's career, there was almost no visible interaction. Every time my mother went to visit them, they would put on stern faces. Only when facing me would the two elders show happiness. But deep down I knew they were just using me as an excuse to care for my mom. Their affection for me was simply an extension of their love for her. Mom, Dad, you're finally here, my mother said with visible relief. My grandparents replied with proud expressions. We wouldn't have come if we weren't worried Hanin's graduation banquet might feel incomplete without us. Of course, let me show you inside. My mother went to help my maternal grandparents. All my classmates came. The Zhang family came, and Sue Rowe's whole family came too. As noon approached, almost all the guests had arrived, but I still couldn't see Qin Zhou anywhere. Only then did I realize I might have been a bit rash. I don't know about Qin Zhou's academic performance, nor which university he got into, so inviting him over like this seems rather rash. As I was thinking this, a familiar voice suddenly came from above. Where should I sit? I looked up and met Qin Zhou's beautiful eyes. I'll take you there. As I spoke, a smile involuntarily bloomed on my face. 27. I took Qin Zhou to the table where my high school classmates were sitting. Upon seeing Qin Zhou, the girls who had been chatting freely immediately blushed and fell silent. Hanin, you're amazing. You even managed to invite the school heartthrob who never gets close to anyone. Hearing this, I just smiled without saying anything. The Sue group is sizable, and most of the attendees at my college celebration banquet were business partners. I followed my parents to toast the guests. When it came to the table where the Zhang family was seated, someone raised a question. Why are our in-laws sitting with us? My mother smiled and explained. Here's the thing, Hanin and Xiang's engagement has been called off. Their betrothal was just a casual remark made years ago, never meant to be taken seriously. Everyone present was sharp-witted, so no one pressed further. Instead, it was Jang's parents who became displeased. However, they restrained themselves and didn't voice their stance. My mother wanted to spare the Zhang family some dignity, but I didn't, wanting to end things gracefully after doing something disgraceful. Since when does the world offer such nice deals? I looked at Su Ro, who was clutching her stomach with a conflicted expression, as if struggling over whether to expose right then that she was pregnant with Zhang Chuyang's child. So, I simply walked toward Zhang Chuyang, who wasn't far from her. Halfway there, suddenly, my foot twisted, and I fell straight forward, and directly in front of me was Su Ro. Just as I was about to crash into Su Ro, a sudden force pulled at my waist. It was Qin Zhou. He had caught me by the waist. "Thank you," I said to him as I straightened up in Qin Zhou's arms. The terrified Su Ro exploded, clutching her stomach as she stood up from the chair. She pointed at me and accused, "Sui-han, you did this on purpose. You can't stand that I'm carrying Chu Yang's child and tried to make me lose the baby." 28. Su Ro's words caused an uproar in the room. The crowd instantly understood the reason I broke off my engagement with Zhang Chuyang was because he had an affair with my cousin, and they even had a child together. Everyone present cared about their reputation, and many looked at the Zhang family with undisguised contempt. The Zhang parents valued face most of all. Mrs. Zhang immediately denied. "Su Ro, how dare you spout such nonsense? Our Chuyang isn't someone you can just seduce as you please." With things having come to this, Su Ro decided to abandon all restraint. "Auntie, whether the child in my belly is Chuyang's or not, you know the truth. If you insist on denying it, we can always do a paternity test after the baby is born. You shameless slut, I'll tear your mouth apart." Just as the Zhang family and Su Daqiang's family were about to start fighting again, my mom directly had security kick both families out. The scene became quiet once more. The crowd's gazes toward me held more sympathy. Of course, my dad was the exception among these people. His face turned livid, with a look in his eyes as if he wanted to devour me. As soon as we got home after the college celebration banquet, my dad exploded. "How could you two be so vicious? Ruru is already pitiful enough, pregnant with Zhang Chuyang's child yet not accepted by the Zhang family. Must you drive her to death? But doesn't she deserve this punishment? Sui-han, don't think I don't dare to teach you a lesson." My father strode toward me. The security guards blocked my path, surrounding me tightly. "If you don't want to end up hospitalized again, go ahead and try something." 29. I knew you were no good. Enough. My mother couldn't take it anymore and interrupted my father. "Su Zhenan, let's get a divorce." "Divorce? Jing Yunru, are you joking?" My father's tone was full of shock and disdain. Clearly, in his mind, no matter how he treated my mother and me, she would never divorce him. "Yes, divorce," my mother declared resolutely. After taking a moment to process this, my father sneered. "Fine, let's divorce then. We'll split the assets 50-50. Why should we split it equally with you? What have you contributed to this family besides eating, drinking, and having fun?" I protested, but my mother said, "All right, I'll have the lawyer draft the agreement later, then it's settled." After my father went upstairs, my mother looked at me and reassured me, "Hannah, since we've decided to divorce, the most important thing is to cut the knot quickly. Money can be earned again, and after all, he is your father. Giving him some money isn't a big deal." My mother made a fair point, so I kept quiet for the time being. Seeing that my mother was fine, I told her I was going out to meet a friend, actually went to the hospital. I hope my guess is wrong, so that to prevent my mother from being too upset, I can let Su Zhenan get a little inheritance. At the hospital, I successfully obtained the test results. When I opened the test report and saw the results, I was so angry I could barely breathe. I guessed right. Su Ro is truly the child of Su Zhenan and that meal delivery auntie. 30. I immediately took the test results back to show my mom. My mom, who was originally grieving over their decades-long marriage, became completely consumed by rage upon discovering that the child my father had through his affair was 3 years older than me. Truly my mother, even when angry, she didn't let rage consume her reason. She called my grandparents, and told them about the situation. My grandparents came with my 3 uncles. My father, who was taking a nap, was dragged off the bed and beaten severely by my 3 uncles, already injured. He was beaten to within an inch of his life. Then my eldest uncle placed a divorce agreement in front of him, demanding he sign it. When my father saw it required him to leave with nothing, he absolutely refused to sign. My uncle sneered, "Su Zhenan, think carefully. If you don't sign, I'll report you for bigamy tomorrow and have you thrown in jail. Not only that, but from now on, I'll beat up every other member of the Su family I see. None of you will ever have a chance to succeed in this lifetime." Realizing that Su Ro's secret had been exposed, My father signed the document with a look of utter defeat. At that moment, my parents' divorce was finalized. From now on, he's no longer my father. Su Jianan was thrown out of the villa like trash. I'm so angry. If it weren't for considering Henin, I would have made sure he went to jail. The uncles were furious. My mother had no time to grieve, turning instead to comfort my grandparents and uncles. In the end, my grandparents and uncles, out of concern for my mother and me, insisted on taking us in to stay for a while. At my grandparents' house, I felt a warmth I had never experienced before. So warm that I never wanted to go back. My mom also thought the villa was unlucky, so she sold it below market price. There was still over a month before Tsinghua's semester started. My mom asked me, "What are your plans next?" "Mom, I want to do an internship at a company. After dealing with the trash, making money is what really matters. I need to learn how to manage the company early, so I can inherit the family business." After hearing my answer, my mother smiled and said, "Perfect. That's exactly what I had in mind." 31. My mother took me to buy several sets of professional attire. I put on the professional attire and tied up my long hair. The reflection in the mirror shows a bold and confident me, no longer the coward of my past life. The next day, I went to the company with my mom. I witnessed firsthand as my mom instructed HR to fire all the people Su Jianan had previously planted in the company. Soon, my mom's phone in the CEO's office was ringing off the hook. "Sister-in-law, we're family after all. That bastard Su Jianan's actions have nothing to do with me. Elder sister, I've already cut ties with Su Jianan. Jobs are hard to come by these days. Could you please not fire me for the sake of our past relationship, when interests are at stake?" The brotherhood Su Jianan took such pride in proved utterly fragile. My mom, not wanting to waste time, simply blocked all these people outright. My mother handed me over to a senior at the company, and I had a lot to learn every day. Amidst this busyness, the affairs of the Zhang family and Su Daqiang's family also reached my ears without fail. It's not that I wanted to hear, but the Zhang family scandals were simply too numerous recently, becoming common knowledge in the circle. After Su Rou publicly announced at my college celebration banquet that she was pregnant with Zhang Qiang's child, Zhang's parents, feeling utterly humiliated, ordered Zhang Qiang to cut off all contact with Su Rou. Whether it was Zhang Qiang's deep affection or Su Rou's manipulative skills, he actually continued his affair with her behind his parents' backs. When Zhang's mother accidentally discovered this, she was so furious that she was hospitalized. At Zhang Corporation, several major cooperative projects fell through due to their disgraceful behavior, resulting in heavy losses. Watching the company's stock price plummet day after day, Zhang's father was overwhelmed with anxiety. That's not all. It turned out Su Rou didn't know she was an illegitimate child who couldn't be exposed to the light. After learning that the meal-delivering aunt was her mother, she furiously scolded Su Jianan and her biological mother for being shameless. In a fit of anger, she directly lost the baby in her womb. 32. Without her child, Su Rou lost any chance to marry into the Zhang family. Her status in the Su family plummeted. She stopped being arrogant and began to coax Su Jianan again. After all, Su Jianan had money in his hands. Back then, the reason Su Jianan signed the divorce papers with my mother so readily was twofold. First, he feared going to prison and was intimidated by my uncles. Second, he had a substantial amount of secret savings. But someone accustomed to a life of luxury could hardly endure watching his savings dwindle day by day. Lured by Su Laosan, Su Jianan became addicted to gambling. Within just a month, he lost millions, wiping out his entire fortune. 2. I heard from our former villa neighbors that a disheveled Su Jianan came looking for me and my mother at the villa. Unfortunately, the villa had long changed owners, and he couldn't find us. 33. Hearing people discuss those individuals' miserable circumstances again, I realized my heart remained largely unmoved. We've long belonged to different worlds. Regardless of whether their future brings fortune or misfortune, I'll keep striving to become better. On the day Tsinghua University started, Zhang Chuyang stopped me at the school gate. Henin, I've completely cut ties with Su Rou. We grew up together since childhood sweethearts. Can you forgive me just this once? The ridiculous thing was, I actually saw a trace of genuine affection in Zhang Chuyang's eyes. Some people are like this, they don't cherish what comes easily, yet crave what they can't have. Sorry, I won't forgive you. Looking at Zhang Chuyang for even a second feels like a waste of my life. I walked straight past Zhang Chuyang and entered the school grounds. A familiar figure came into view. It's Qin Zhou. He's also holding an admission notice in his hand, as if waiting for me. Seeing me, he approaches and extends an invitation. Want to go register together? Okay. I nodded and walked side by side with Qingzhou. Let bygones be bygones. And fear not the future, I will eventually become the person I want to be. Story 2, the strategy failed, so I just let it all go. I tied him up, had tender and affectionate moments with him every day, and even gave birth to a son for him. Finally, I died a tragic death in front of him. I enjoyed 5 years of carefree time happily, but then the mission suddenly restarted. As soon as I was reborn, I was grabbed by the neck viciously. The man's usually well-behaved face now had blood-red eyes. Another one who doesn't care about her life, who gave you the guts to imitate Ran. Not far away, a little figure who resembled him walked out slowly, with a shiny pistol pointed at my forehead. Anyone who imitates my mother must die. 1. I was eating potato chips when the system forcefully sent me back to the world of the novel. If you don't go back, those two father-son will almost turn that world upside down. I had been away from that world for 5 years. At that time, my body in the original world had a terminal illness, and only by completing the strategy mission could I get the reward of being cured. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never win over Lin Qingling. He was like a flower on a lofty mountain that was extremely difficult to pick. In a fit of anger, I just let it all go. I tied up my strategy target who looked down on me, drugged him, had tender and affectionate moments with him every day, and gave birth to a lovely son for him. But Lin Qingling never had a good look for me from beginning to end. He always said I was disgusting. The disgust that emanated from him, from the inside out, deeply hurt me. Extremely heartbroken, I took the initiative to ask the system to take me out of the world. So on the day my son turned 1 month old, like every time before, I lowered my head and kissed Lin Qingling's lips. He frowned and still didn't respond. From shallow to deep, it was my farewell kiss to Lin Qingling. I took the key and unlocked Lin Qingling's handcuffs. Under his surprised gaze, I smiled. I set you free, Lin Qingling. What trick are you going to play this time? Lin Qingling looked at me with eyes full of annoyance. He hated me so much. My heart ached for a moment. To say I wasn't sad would be a lie. Although I forcefully tied Lin Qingling home, after a year of living together day and night, with tender and affectionate moments every day, and my such dedication even if there was no love. There should be some habit, right? No tricks. I just suddenly realized the fact that you won't like me. I twitched the corners of my mouth and looked at Lin Qingling's back as he couldn't wait to leave. Sorry, Lin Qingling. I just have one request. Take good care of our son. I watched him open the door of the room without hesitation. He didn't even look back. Without a trace of reluctance. Goodbye, Lin Qingling, I said softly. After that, under the system's prompt of about to leave the world, I turned around and rushed towards the balcony, jumping off. What happened after that was a blank. I only knew that when I opened my eyes, I had already returned to my own world, thinking that I would die someday anyway. I simply enjoyed life. The 3-month deadline for death, because of my good attitude, was actually extended by me for 5 years. The doctor said it was a miracle. I didn't understand what the system meant. What did it mean that the father-son would turn the world upside down? In my impression, Lin Qingling had a steady personality, rarely smiled, and was even more successful in his studies, winning scholarships and national awards with ease. My son, if brought up by him, would surely grow up to be upright. That's what I thought, so I made up my mind to let the system take me out of the world. But before I could think too much, I was grabbed by the neck viciously by a hand with distinct knuckles. That well-behaved and handsome face that I hadn't seen for 5 years appeared in front of me again without any mental preparation. The man's eyes were blood red, filled with rolling hatred. Another one who doesn't care about her life, who gave you the guts to imitate Ran. I couldn't catch my breath for a while and desperately beat the hand that was choking my breath. I spoke out of breath. Lin Qingling, I am Qin Ran. The force on my neck loosened slightly. Lin Qingling was visibly astonished. The door of the room not far away was opened. A child who resembled him walked out slowly. With a cold face, he steadily pointed a shiny pistol at my forehead. His words were terrifying, not what a child could say. Anyone who imitates my mother must die. 2. Judging from the appearance of this child, I recognized him almost immediately. This was my son. At that time, because Lin Qingling couldn't accept him, I didn't name him. I didn't expect him to have grown so tall now. Lin Qingling's hand completely let go at this moment. I slid down from the wall, continuously stroking my throat, inhaling and coughing crazily. You're really trying to kill me, Lin Qingling. It's been 5 years. Why do you still hate me so much? He obviously hadn't reacted yet and just looked at me warily. The big one and the small one each occupied one side at this moment. and even their defensive expressions were exactly the same. Although I was coughing with tears in my eyes, I still beckoned to my son with full of collagen face. I haven't seen you for 5 years. Come here quickly, son, and let mom give you a hug. He held the pistol, moved forward 2 steps like a little adult, and then quickly stopped. The child said coldly, Dad said that mom died not long after I was born. There's only one mom. All you women, just because you look like my mom, you want to be my mom. It's a pipe dream. I'm going to kill all you bad women. I shivered because of his words. Subconsciously, I looked up and frowned at Lin Qingling, who was standing aside and silent. I asked you to take good care of our son, and this is how you teach him, Lin Qingling. You actually taught him to kill. Are you crazy? You can hate me, but you can't hate our son. Lin Qingling still just looked at me. The bloodshot eyes in his eyes were fully stretched, looking very terrifying. He moved his lips. His lowered head actually looked a bit pitiful. I clicked my tongue. I tried to stand up straight and reach for my son's hand, but was stopped by Lin Qingling. He grabbed my wrist, his lips trembling. That look seemed to have passed through thousands of years and landed on me. He used too much force, and I felt a bit of pain and wanted to withdraw my hand. Qin ran. I paused. That voice was low and hoarse, as if with a faint plea. After a long while, I finally heard him speak. It seemed to be choked with sobs, and he asked uncertainly, Is it really you who came back? Don't lie to me anymore, please. 3. Logically speaking, Lin Qingling didn't like me. Even if I died in front of him, he wouldn't be the least bit moved. But now, looking at the handcuffs on my wrists and ankles, although the insides of the handcuffs were wrapped with sponge to avoid hurting me, I still fell into deep thought. Could it be that Lin Qingling's personality has become abnormal after being tied up by me? The door made a click sound. Lin Qingling walked in with a plate. He was still as handsome as ever. One could even say that he was more charming than before, with a height of 1.88 meters. He had a typical muscular body when taking off his clothes but looked slender when wearing them. Coupled with that abstinent and perfect face, even I, who had seen many models, still couldn't help but be infatuated. The steaming mist rose along the edge of the bowl. It was my favorite fish, filet congee. He scooped a spoonful, blew on it, and brought it to my lips. His movements were gentle, as if we were really a couple who had been in love for many years and had a son. If we ignored the fact that I was wearing overly heavy shackles at the moment and it was difficult for me to even raise my hand, eating a bowl of congee was extremely tiring. I took a breath. Lin Qingling, are you taking revenge on me? Revenge? Lin Qingling seemed to not understand my words at all. He slowly wiped the remaining liquid on my lips with his fingertips. He deliberately made the movement very slow, making my senses infinitely magnified. I watched him lower his head, his handsome face approaching me. A burning kiss landed on the center of my lips. This was the first time he took the initiative to kiss me. It was not a shallow kiss but deepened infinitely until I was out of breath. There were red marks at the corners of his eyes. Suddenly, he pushed me down on the head of the bed and used his knee to push open my legs. If you're an imposter, I'll kill you. Lin Qingling's voice was as cold as if he had just come out of an ice cellar. I felt my clothes being peeled off. I finally couldn't help it and struggled to shout, Lin Qingling, how could you become like this? I became like this. A sneering laugh. His slender and cold fingers stroked my face. He took out a gift ribbon and wrapped it around my forearm circle by circle, until I couldn't move at all. I could only let him do as he pleased. My terrified reflection was in Lin Qingling's amber pupils. Ran. Didn't you turn me into this? So, why did you leave me in Siren? 4. I was tossed and tormented by Lin Qingling all night long. He even personally served me to take a bath. But as we were washing, things started to go wrong again. In the second half of the night, he wrapped me in his arms. Despite his tall and big figure, he was in a curled-up posture, an action that showed extreme lack of security, but I couldn't fall asleep no matter what. In the darkness, I traced Lin Qingling's handsome face with my eyes. 5 years seemed to have made him more mature. The remaining bit of immaturity in his eyebrows and eyes was covered by his always furrowed brows. I stretched out a finger and quietly smoothed the wrinkles between his brows. What on earth had happened in these 5 years? Don't leave. A murmur seemed to spill from Lin Qingling's lips. What? I didn't hear clearly and moved closer to him. Suddenly, I met a pair of deep eyes. Lin Qingling had woken up at some point. Our breaths intertwined. Very close. There were still ambiguous red marks on his neck left by me. I withdrew my hand awkwardly. The handcuffs collided, making a clear sound. It was particularly harsh in the quiet environment. What you said before, Siren. I tried to ignore his scorching gaze and changed the subject. Is that our son? Did you name him? He didn't speak and just looked at me quietly. His look gave me goosebumps all over my back. There was inquiry and interrogation in his eyes. I suddenly remembered what Lin Qingling had said before. There were many people who pretended to be me and wanted to be my son's mother. I twitched the corners of my mouth and was about to explain to Lin Qingling half-jokingly that I faked my death with the help of the system, but I was stopped by his next words. His palm gently stroked my cheek. His fingertips were dry and warm, but there was countless mockery and coldness in his eyes. You're the one who imitates her the most vividly. From now on, you can stay here. 5. Imitate whom? Imitate Qin Ran. I imitate myself. I came to a conclusion from his words. Over the years, Lin Qingling had found many women who resembled me. Looking at his naked and muscular upper body, I suddenly felt disgusted. Although I used extreme methods on Lin Qingling before, I had only ever had him. I had him in my heart all the time, even though he didn't have a good look for me. I never thought of fooling around with other men behind his back. Now this body had probably had affairs with countless women. I suddenly struggled violently. Lin Qingling's pupils trembled because of my actions, and he used force to hold down my hands. What are you doing? He furrowed his brows again. I stared at him viciously, trying to see some emotional fluctuations in Lin Qingling's eyes, but his eyes were still the same as 5 years ago, making it impossible to figure out his mood at this moment. Lin Qingling, you're so dirty. I gritted my teeth. I thought he would react, but he just held my hand, pulled my body, which had crawled a little further away, back a bit, and fixed me back in his arms. I heard him Lin Qingling was very restless when sleeping. He was like an octopus that couldn't breathe without holding me, tightly wrapped around me, scaring me awake several times in the middle of the night. In my impression, Lin Qingling was always well behaved, whether in life or when sleeping. Before, we also slept in the same bed and covered with the same quilt, but there was always a very obvious dividing line between him and me, unless I drugged him. Otherwise, he would never take the initiative to cross that line, as if we were two completely unrelated people. What Lin Qingling was like before going to bed, he would still be like that when waking up. When I opened my eyes, I still felt extremely angry. 5 years ago, he felt extremely humiliated even if he touched me once. 5 years later, he had slept with countless women and still held those women tightly in his arms when sleeping. This made me, who was crazy about winning him over at that time, look extremely stupid. System, I want to go home. Why did you bring me back unaccountably? I was furiously angry with no way to vent. Out of sight, out of mind. If this continued, I might be the one who turned dark. The mechanical voice of the system floated faintly. Are you sure? Host, Lin Qingling has become like this because you didn't follow the strategy rules, used abnormal strategy methods, and even died in front of him without permission, causing a great change in his temperament. The Lord God is very angry about this. This is your only chance to atone for your sins now. As long as you lead Lin Qingling and his son back to the right path, your body in the original world can survive. And the Lord God will give you a large sum of wealth. Otherwise, your body in the original world will die immediately. 6. Well, now I have to continue, the system kindly reminded. Host, actually it's very simple. Lin Qingling's son is also your son. After all, you have a blood relationship connected by the umbilical cord. You can start with the little guy first and influence him with love. Children are easy to coax. A little guy who carries a gun and always talks about killing. I said calmly. The system fell silent. Look, even the system thinks it's difficult. Why do they have to make things difficult for an ordinary and poor person like me? In a daze, I fell asleep again. In my sleep, it seemed that something soft touched my face. I mumbled, so annoying, and waved away that strange feeling. Sure enough, that feeling disappeared. It landed on my ear and chest again. When I woke up, Lin Qingling was no longer in the room. I probed, and there was no warmth on the other side of the bed. He had been gone for a long time. Lin Qingling didn't untie the restraints on my hands and feet. I lowered my eyes and measured. The length of the chain could barely allow me to reach the bathroom, but it was obvious that Lin Qingling didn't intend to let me out of the room. I looked around. The walls were all white, and even the decorative wall cabinets were in cold colors, giving no sign of human warmth. It was very much in line with Lin Qingling's consistent cold preferences. I planned to get out of bed and wash up first. However, as soon as my feet touched the ground, my legs went weak and I knelt down. Fortunately, there was carpet laid beside the bed, so I didn't hurt my knees when I landed on the floor. This Lin Qingling, did he secretly drug me? I cursed while rubbing my waist, trying to stand up again. When I raised my eyes, I met a pair of watery eyes. The little figure was hiding behind the door. and only those eyes that were very similar to mine were rolling around in the crack of the door. He seemed very curious about me. It was my lovely son. Baby, come in, I called out eagerly. The child curled up his body, and those big eyes disappeared all of a sudden. He must have run away, I sighed in disappointment. The next second, the door creaked open. The little guy, who was not even as tall as my waist, walked in cautiously. His delicate and pretty face was full of vigilance, and there was also a contradiction of wanting to get close to me. I instinctively looked at his hands, seeing that he wasn't holding anything. I felt relieved and beckoned to him again. Son, let mom give you a kiss, although I was yelling at the system last night that I wanted to go home. But it was only when I truly came into face-to-face contact with my son that I realized how hard it was to cut off the blood relationship. Seeing this little dumpling who was tentatively approaching me, I just wanted to spoil him as a domineering mother. When the distance between us shortened to a certain extent, I was quick-eyed and quick-handed. I suddenly pulled my son into my arms and rubbed his chubby cheeks. I smelled the pleasant scent on him. It seemed that apart from not teaching him well, Lin Qingling had taken good care of his daily life. His little arms were plump, and his skin was a healthy color. At this moment, he was wearing a small suit with a tie, and the leather shoes were obviously custom-made and expensive. Are you going to a party, baby? I glanced at my son's hair styled with hairspray. At first, my son was still struggling in my arms. When he heard my voice, he suddenly became quiet and stopped moving. Can you take mom with you? I coaxed him. Talk to your dad about it. Mom hasn't seen you for a long time and wants to be with you all the time. Surely Lin Qingling couldn't keep me locked in the room forever. My son nestled in my chest, and his chubby hands hugged my neck. My heart melted into a puddle of water because of his action. However, Lin Qingling's son was just like Lin Qingling. Even though he was only 5 years old, he still inherited his father's coldness and seriousness. His little face was tense, and his tone was stiff. No, you'll run away. You'll leave me and dad behind. You can't be let out. Besides, there are many pretty aunts at the party. After saying that, the little guy let go of his hands. He slipped out of my arms in a flash and ran away. I was left alone, feeling disoriented in front of the door that was quickly closed. 7. My son's words kept repeating in my mind. There are many pretty aunts at the party. There are many pretty aunts. Pretty aunts. Fine. Lin Qingling locked me up and then went to enjoy his life in the company of other women. 3 meals a day were delivered to me on time. The breakfast was my favorite fish fillet congee, the lunch had my favorite braised beef brisket and curry, and the dinner included my favorite snacks. It was as if the menu was tailor-made for me. The person who delivered the food was probably a nanny. She was of a certain age and very tight-lipped. No matter what I said, she wouldn't reply. She just put the food in front of me. I won't eat it. I asked her to take it away. She said expressionlessly, if you don't eat, Mr. Lin will punish me. She showed me the scars on her arm on purpose or not. I widened my eyes. I tried to find signs of lying on the nanny's face. Unfortunately, everyone in the Lin family seemed to be cut from the same mold, and it was impossible to tell what they were thinking from their faces. After the nanny left, I clenched my fists and punched the bed as if to vent my anger. You're really something. Lin Qingling, not only are you abnormal towards me, but you also play the game of abuse. You're simply not human. System, I don't want to live anymore. I want to go back. I shouted. The system appeared helplessly. Host, don't be willful. I frowned, and my eyes were sour. Look at these father and son. One is looking for substitutes everywhere and locking me up, and the other doesn't recognize me and wants to find other pretty moms. And did you see the scars on the nanny's hands? There's a good chance that I'll be the next one to be beaten. I can't go on with this life. I couldn't win over Lin Qingling 5 years ago, and I still can't do it 5 years later. I started to give up again. I want to go on strike and slack off. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to humiliate myself. Host, I want to go back, even if it means letting me die. As soon as I finished speaking, the door was suddenly opened eagerly. The sound was so loud that I turned around at once. Before I could regain my senses, I was suddenly pulled into someone's arms. The fresh fragrance of gardenias lingered in my nose. It was the perfume I loved to spray the most 5 years ago. My nose hit the hard chest of the person in front of me, and he tightened his arms with such great force that it seemed he wanted to integrate me into his bones. His voice was trembling, and even the body that was holding me was shaking. Don't leave. I beg you not to leave. I was wrong. I can give you whatever you want. I just beg you not to leave me again, please. Tears seeped down my collar, wetting my neck and slowly sliding down through my clothes. Everywhere they touched seemed to be burned. I was hugged so tightly that I couldn't breathe. I gasped for breath and called Lin Qingling's name. but he still didn't want to let go. It was only when I hugged him back and gently patted his back that he seemed to be released from a great burden. He gasped and fell to the ground with me in his arms. I could hear his painful moans in my ears. Only then did I smell that besides the fragrance of gardenias, there was also a strong smell of alcohol on Lin Qingling. Was he drunk? 8. After much persuasion, I managed to coax Lin Qingling onto the bed. His eyes were tightly closed, and the beautiful corners of his eyes were stained with a coquettish red. He was wearing the same black suit as my son. It seemed that he had taken off his tie on the way. The collar of his shirt was wide open, and the exposed skin was also tinged with a pinkish hue. The seductive scene in front of me made me swallow my saliva involuntarily. I went to the bathroom to get a towel to wipe his face. When the towel reached the back of his ear, he grabbed my wrist with his backhand. He opened his eyes. The whites of his eyes were scarlet, and there were faint dark circles under his eyes. It seemed that he hadn't had a good rest for a long time. Since you're awake, go take a shower by yourself. I knew I couldn't break free from his grip, so I didn't waste my energy. Instead, I directly looked into those clear eyes. Ran, whether it was 5 years ago or 5 years later, this was the first time Lin Qingling called me so seriously and affectionately in front of me. I was taken aback. I had prepared a lot of words to defend myself for a whole day, but because of these 2 words, I didn't say a single one. Seeing that I didn't speak, he called me again. His eyes were shining brightly. I coughed and replied awkwardly, "Why, there were so many pretty girls at the party. Didn't you have a good time?" "I didn't talk to them," he pouted, looking just like an enlarged version of my son. "What should I do?" Drunk Lin Qingling seemed a bit too cute. I bent down, carefully observed his expression, and continued to fish for information. "Then why didn't you take Ran with you?" As soon as I said this, the air became visibly silent. Lin Qingling seemed to be thinking. His brows were furrowed tightly, and even his facial features were twisted. I quickly reached out to smooth his brows. I didn't know why, but I really didn't want to see Lin Qingling in such a tangled state. I did something wrong and made Ran angry, so Ran left and won't come back again. I'll never be able to see her again. He lowered his eyes and fell asleep again. I heard Lin Qingling's even breathing. After a moment of silence, I still finished wiping his face, took off his coat, and covered him with a quilt. Then I leaned against the head of the bed. I stared blankly at the blank ceiling. 9. Lin Qingling was overly self-disciplined. No matter what he did the previous night or how late he stayed up, he would always wake up before me. I gradually got used to the 3 meals a day. I gradually accepted his caresses, and that little guy who came to visit me every day. To make it easier for me to interact with my son, Lin Qingling, out of mercy, untied the handcuffs on my feet. One day, my son came to me shyly and, for the first time, said to me, "I want to go to the amusement park." This was the first time he showed a childlike expression in front of me. It seemed that Lin Qingling had never taken him there. I also really wanted to make up for the childhood that my son had missed, but, I raised the handcuffs on my wrist. "But Mom can't go." My son's eyes dimmed for a moment. He drooped his shoulders and left the room. Because of this, I hated Lin Qingling deeply. What a great opportunity to cultivate my relationship with my son. About 20 minutes later, the little guy appeared again. He furtively handed me a key. I took it suspiciously and tentatively inserted it into the keyhole. It actually opened. The sudden freedom made me feel a moment of confusion. My first reaction was to kiss my son's face hard. He smelled so good. My son smelled so good. The little guy might have gotten used to my kisses. He didn't struggle and let me kiss him to my heart's content. Then he blushed and whispered, "Can we go to the amusement park now?" "Of course we can." I picked up my son and carried him out of the door that had been closed for many days. Only then did I realize that the place where Lin Qingling had locked me up was a duplex villa. And the room where I was locked was on the 2nd floor. The decoration outside the room was exactly as I had imagined. It was still in the same cold tones, and only the sofa was an unexpectedly bright yellow. In front of it was a 120-inch TV. Lin Qingling didn't like watching TV. After all, before me, Lin Qingling had had many women. I thought sourly that maybe it had been bought for other women before. I didn't want to look at it anymore. I turned around and asked my son, "Have you seen Mom's clothes?" These days, I had been wearing different styles of pajamas, or sometimes I secretly wore Lin Qingling's t-shirts. I couldn't go out to play in my pajamas. I had originally intended to ask where the clothes I had been wearing when I came to this world were, but my son took my hand and led me into a room at the end of the stairs. This room wasn't as bright as the other rooms outside. There wasn't even a light installed. Approaching this place was like walking into an invisible abyss. I hesitated and held my son back. Good son, are you sure mom's clothes are in here? Yeah, my son nodded affirmatively. I saw dad take your clothes and go in. My eyesight is 5.3. I won't be wrong. That's not what I meant. The door was pushed open by my son with a palm. The sight that met my eyes was shocking. The whole room was covered with my photos of me smiling, crying, sleeping, and being angry. It was like the gathering place of a strange ceremony. The decoration and arrangement of the room were exactly the same as the room where I had locked Lin Qingling up 5 years ago. Even the little pig ornament in the corner of the desk had been replicated. On the bookshelf was a group photo of me and Lin Qingling when I had forced him before. His face was stiff, and he looked very impatient. I had a bright smile and snuggled up to him like a little bird, making a V gesture. That was the only group photo of the two of us. It was a pity that later I died, and I couldn't take the photo with me. I had a hunch that in the wardrobe were all the clothes I had worn 5 years ago. My feet moved forward uncontrollably. My hand was about to touch the handle of the wardrobe. Suddenly, Lin Qingling's cold voice came from behind me, like the call of the god of death from hell. What are you two doing? 10. I was startled. I squatted down. I picked up my son who was standing beside me and held him in front of me as a shield. It was all my son who brought me here. It has nothing to do with me. Don't kill me to silence me. My son, Lin Qingling walked towards me with the steps of the god of death. Each step seemed to be crushing the tip of my heart. I bit my lower lip tightly. My son's voice of pain came up from below. You're hugging me too tightly. I quickly covered his mouth and whispered in his ear, you're his son. He won't do anything to you. I'm just a dispensable woman. He can kill me if he wants to. I gave birth to you after 10 months of pregnancy. Even if I have no credit, I have hard work. You can't be so heartless, little thing. Lin Qingling bent down. His perfect face approached mine. I held my breath. I regretted it deeply. Why hadn't the first thing I did after the handcuffs were untied been to escape from the villa? Now, I had touched Lin Qingling's sore spot, with his character. I didn't know what he would do to me. However, the next second, I saw his hand bypass me and open the wardrobe that I had wanted to open. I turned my head. As I had expected, they were all my former clothes. There was also a beautiful goose yellow evening dress, which I had originally planned to wear to a dinner party with Lin Qingling 5 years ago, but later, there was no later. I let Lin Qingling go and even jumped off the building in front of him. Lin Qingling, you must hate me, right? I let out a deep sigh and, mustering up my courage, raised my head to look directly at Lin Qingling not far from me. Hearing this, Lin Qingling looked at me. I pestered you, and when you ignored me, I tied you up and drugged you. I even gave birth to a son for you against your will. You must hate me, right? Any one of these charges alone was enough to sentence me to death. But everyone has their youth. At that time, I truly liked Lin Qingling, with a bit of annoyance and anger mixed in. He moved his lips. I gave a self-deprecating smile. Maybe I can't live for long, and that's probably my retribution. I'm sorry for making you suffer. You hate me. You finally got rid of me. And after 5 years, you have to see me every day again. Let me go, Lin Qingling. Don't worry. Anyway, I'll disappear completely soon, and you won't have to be bothered by me all the time. You're leaving again. This angry roar startled both me and my son at the same time. Lin Qingling's face looked very grim. Hidden storms and anger seemed to surround him, and he looked as if he was about to go crazy. Seeing this, my son quickly broke free from me and grabbed Lin Qingling's arm. Dad, Mom won't leave. I'll stop Mom. My son was like an ant on a hot pan, so anxious that sweat poured down his face. When he saw that Lin Qingling didn't do anything further, he quickly ran over and grabbed the hem of my clothes. Mom, tell Dad quickly that you won't leave. Mom. Why do you always want to leave me and Dad? Don't you love us at all? He looked as if he was about to cry. His nasal voice was humming, making people feel sorry for him. I couldn't spare the thought to be happy that my son finally called me Mom because Lin Qingling didn't look well at this moment. He was breathing wildly. Tears were falling from his eyes like water from a faucet with the tap broken. Unable to be stopped, Qin ran. Do you know how many women who looked like you appeared in front of me before you came? Each of them said that she was Ran. The ridiculous thing is that I really thought it was you who had come back. But I thought, since you were even willing to die in front of me, how could you possibly come back? His tears soaked his shirt, and a few drops fell on his coat, outlining faint water halos, which were incredibly beautiful. You don't know, and you don't want to know. My son wiped Lin Qingling's tears with his sleeve, but soon, his own tears couldn't be stopped either. My classmates always say that I don't have a mom, but over the years, a bunch of people have been competing to be my mom. I asked Dad why. and Dad said that none of them were Ran, and none of them were Mom. My mom is already dead. I didn't believe it. I always firmly believed that Mom would come back. So I want to kill those women because they are blocking my mom from coming back. I admit that I was shocked by what the father and son said. It was also at this moment that I discovered the mystery. I almost never appeared in public with Lin Qingling, and Lin Qingling had never publicly expressed that he liked me. How could there be a bunch of women who looked like me appearing in front of Lin Qingling? Was it the system? Host, speak of the devil and he appears. System, what on earth is going on? I didn't taboo that the father and son were still there. A potential guess made me feel unprecedented anger. If that was really the case, then I, Lin Qingling, and even my son were all beings controlled and toyed with by the system. After you died, Lin Qingling's Melanism value has always been at the critical point. The Lord God was afraid that the world would collapse, and couldn't send you back either. So he created some women who looked similar to you or even exactly the same as you. He even gave those women the memories between you and Lin Qingling. Logically speaking, there was no mistake, but we don't know how Lin Qingling managed to do it. He could always find out at the first moment that those women weren't you. As time went by, he became hostile towards every woman, even Lin Siren, that is, your son, the host, also became melanistic. We really had no other choice but to find you, the host, and forcefully send you back. The world can't collapse. Host, you guys are going too far, using my appearance and my memories to deceive Lin Qingling and deceive my own flesh and blood. Lin Qingling, this time it's really me. I'm Qin Ran, not those strange women. I threw myself in front of Lin Qingling and protected him. This time, it was me who enclosed him in that small corner. After being deceived for so long, it was impossible not to be defensive towards others. I seriously held Lin Qingling's face in my hands and looked into his red eyes. Lin Qingling, believe me, I don't not love you and our son, I just really want to live. After saying that, I fell silent. Human nature is selfish. I want to live so much. I still have a lot of things to do in the real world, and I don't want to die. If at the beginning I approached Lin Qingling with the purpose of the strategy, later on, I really fell in love with Lin Qingling. I couldn't stand the fact that I was approaching him with a purpose for the strategy. I also couldn't stand being hated by the person I liked countless times. That's why I chose to give up and leave the world. And this time I came back, although it was forced, and although it was also for the sake of being able to live, but I couldn't say that I had no feelings at all for Lin Qingling and my son. The unprovoked jealousy and the genuine love for my son from the bottom of my heart proved at every moment. I can't forget Lin Qingling. I love the little flesh that came from my body. I carefully leaned forward and kissed Lin Qingling's lips. Just a gentle peck. Lin Qingling, believe me, I repeated it eagerly. I was afraid that he would regard me as one of those women who deceived him. I was afraid that I would also become one of those women, but Lin Qingling said, I know. I blinked. I saw the curve of his lips. He smiled and kissed me back. Suddenly, I quickly covered my son's eyes. I heard Lin Qingling's voice, like the clear sky after the rain and the gentle breeze caressing my face. He said, I know, the first moment I saw you, I knew, my Ran is back. Thank you for coming back. Epilogue 1. Lin Qingling no longer locked me up. The thing he liked to do the most was to sit on the sofa, let me half lie in his arms, and watch TV with me. But the current TV programs are really boring. Lin Qingling looked particularly aggrieved. Ran, you used to like this the most. Then I remembered. At that time, I was always eager to do some things that couples do with Lin Qingling. Watching movies was the first on the list, but I couldn't take Lin Qingling, who was wearing handcuffs, out, so lying in Lin Qingling's arms and watching TV became my most enjoyable date. Although Lin Qingling always seemed very reluctant every time, but now our positions were reversed. In order to prevent Lin Qingling from crying uncontrollably again, I could only follow his wishes. I sighed and lay back on his knees. I let him stroke my hair from time to time. I mumbled and half-jokingly asked him, did you realize that you loved me so much only after I died? Hearing this, Lin Qingling paused. I thought to myself that the novel was right after all. The living can't compete with the dead. But I didn't expect Lin Qingling to softly deny it. No. I liked you a long time ago. Before you liked me. How could that be possible? Then how could I have failed in this strategy? If he had liked me a long time ago, we would never have ended up in that situation later, and we couldn't have been separated for 5 years. But no matter how much I pressed him, Lin Qingling didn't tell me anymore. He adjusted my head and kissed the corner of my lips. If you don't want to watch TV, we can do something else, something else. I thought of Lin Qingling's inhuman physical strength as if he had taken some medicine. I swallowed my saliva. I quickly sat up straight. I stammered and said, "Then let's still watch TV." But the next second, I was grabbed by Lin Qingling's hand and pushed down on the sofa. He fixed my wrists from below. He made me unable to move at all. I could only press my nose against his. Our breaths were scorching hot. I noticed the burning desire in his eyes. It's too late, in the middle of the night. I forced myself to stay awake. I quietly moved Lin Qingling's arm that was around my waist and got out of the quilt. I ran to the room at the end of the corridor. I always felt that this room held a lot of little secrets. "Mom," a childish voice almost scared the wits out of me. I made a gesture for silence. "Little Dobao, why haven't you gone to sleep yet?" I saw Mom being sneaky. "Mom, do you want me to accompany you?" Looking at my son's sleepy face and his tentative question, my heart softened completely. I generously wrapped him in my bathrobe. "Come on, son." So my son and I tiptoed together and rummaged through the room. After rummaging for about a quarter of an hour, my son asked me, "Mom, what are you looking for?" I didn't even look up. "Your dad's secrets." My son said, "Oh." I thought he would continue to look obediently. But who would have thought that he casually pulled open a drawer at the bottom of the bookcase and handed me a thick stack of notebooks inside. I always saw Dad reading a notebook. Every time he finished reading, he would put it away carefully. I didn't dare to peek. "Mom, you can read it for me." "Wait a minute, this seems to be my notebook." Right, too. The notebook was very thick. It was some strategy experience I wrote for the later strategists when I was afraid that I couldn't return to the original world. But later, when I fell in love with Lin Qingling, I put the notebook away. The first page of the notebook was still in my handwriting. May 3rd, 2022. This is the third day I've been in this world. It's really difficult to strategy Lin Qingling. He doesn't like to talk to people. He never pays attention to me when I talk to him. It will take forever to succeed in the strategy. June 20th, 2022. He finally agreed to watch a movie with me. I feel that his attitude towards me has softened a bit. Great. There is hope for the success of the strategy. I can go home soon. July 26th, 2022. Today is my birthday. I don't know why, but Lin Qingling's attitude towards me suddenly became cold. He is really difficult to strategy, but I really want to live. After that, there were some precautions I wrote. The strategy target likes to drink fish fillet congee, and I also like to drink fish fillet congee. We are a perfect match. The strategy target always comes and goes alone. He should be very lonely. The strategy target is always bullied at school. I must protect him. When I hold Lin Qingling's hand, his ears will turn red. He is actually quite easily shy. I kissed Lin Qingling's lips, and he didn't push me away. Lin Qingling is not very good at kissing. I flipped through the notebook further, until I saw a page with unfamiliar characters. The handwriting was vigorous and elegant. There were only 7 words on this page. "Why did you let me see this?" I held the notebook and walked out of the room. Outside the door, Lin Qingling was waiting for me. The little guy called out "Dad" and then slipped away like greased lightning. He didn't save his poor mother at all. I've noticed it several times already. As soon as I leave Lin Qingling's side, he will wake up not long after. "Lin Qingling, did you find out that I was trying to strategy you a long time ago?" "I'm not stupid." I can probably guess the cause and effect of Lin Qingling's sudden coldness towards me. Lin Qingling nodded. He also didn't seem to want to hide it anymore. "Your notebook fell downstairs in my dormitory, and my roommate opened it. I didn't believe it at first, but after you tied me up, several times when you were asleep and talking in your dreams, you cried and said that you wanted to go home and that you didn't want to fail in the strategy." The disgust that emanated from him, from the inside out, deeply hurt me. "If you love me more, you can stay by my side forever." "Sorry, Ran, I'm very selfish." He hung his head, looking like a child who had done something wrong. I felt mixed emotions in my heart. For a moment, neither of us said anything, until I took Lin Qingling's hand. His originally dim pupils visibly lit up. I leaned my head against his chest, hugged his waist, and felt the warm and passionate heartbeat